Please, don't send me back. The 6-year-old boy stood barefoot in the Hells Angels parking lot, dried blood cracking on his split lip, clutching a crumpled drawing like it was his last breath. He hadn't eaten in 3 days. He'd walked 7 miles through the darkness, and the man hunting him right now was already dialing 911, reporting his nephew kidnapped. The same man who'd been pressing lit cigarettes into his skin since the day they buried his father 8 months ago. What the Angels discovered in the next 72 hours would expose a killer who'd gotten away with murder 3 times before. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and follow this story to the very end. Comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The boy's name was Lucas Cole, 6 years old, 43 pounds, blonde hair matted with dirt and something darker that might have been blood. Blue eyes too large for his hollow face, the kind of eyes that had seen things no child should ever see. He stood at the edge of the parking lot, swaying slightly, his bare feet torn and bleeding from 7 miles of asphalt and gravel. His Spider-Man pajamas were ripped at the collar where someone had grabbed him. Hard, recently. But he didn't run. He'd been running for hours. Now he was exactly where he needed to be. The motorcycles gleamed under the parking lot lights, 15 of them lined up like soldiers. Chrome and black and silver, each one worth more than everything Lucas had ever owned combined. The building behind them pulsed with music bass so deep he could feel it in his chest. Lucas had never been inside a bar. He didn't know what men did in places like this. All he knew was what his father had told him 3 weeks before the car accident that wasn't really an accident at all. If anything ever happens to me, Lucas, you find the man with the hammer on his vest. His name is Henry, but everyone calls him Hammer. He'll protect you. Promise me you'll remember. Lucas had promised. And now 8 months later, standing on legs that could barely hold him up, he was keeping that promise. The door opened. Music spilled out. Laughter, the smell of beer and cigarettes and leather. Then a man stepped through and Lucas stopped breathing. He was enormous. Maybe the biggest human being Lucas had ever seen. 6'5", at least 270 pounds, with a silver beard that hung to his chest and arms, covered in tattoos that seemed to move in the dim light. His leather vest stretched across shoulders that looked like they could carry the world. And there, right over his heart, was a patch, a hammer. Lucas's legs gave out. Said, Hammer saw the boy fall and move faster than a man his size should be able to move. He crossed the parking lot in 4 strides, dropping to his knees just as the kid's face was about to hit the pavement. Whoa, whoa, whoa. He caught him. Barely. The boy weighed nothing, literally nothing, like holding a bundle of sticks wrapped in dirty fabric. Stone Hammer's voice cracked through the night air. Get out here now. The boy's eyes fluttered open. Blue. Familiar blue. Hammer knew those eyes. He'd seen them 1,000 times across poker tables and garage floors, in the seat of a motorcycle on long desert rides. David Cole's eyes. Please, the boy whispered. His voice was barely a sound, more like air escaping from a punctured tire. Please don't send me back. Hammer's blood went cold. The bar door slammed open. Stone came through first, followed by Razor and 3 others. They stopped dead when they saw what Hammer was holding. Is that a kid? Razor's voice was sharp with confusion. What the hell is a kid doing here? Shut up. Stone moved in, crouching next to Hammer, former Marine. 15 years and 3 tours overseas, trained in field medicine. His eyes swept over the boy with clinical precision, and what he saw made his jaw tighten. He's hypothermic, dehydrated. When's the last time you ate, buddy? The boy didn't answer. Hey, Stone's voice softened. Hey, it's okay. You're safe now. When did you eat last? Tuesday, the boy whispered. Stone and Hammer exchanged a look. It was Friday. 3 days, Stone said quietly. He hasn't eaten in 3 days. Hammer looked down at the child in his arms, at the split lip, at the bruises on his throat shaped like fingers, at the way the boy flinched every time someone made a sudden movement. What's your name, son? Lucas. The boy's hand moved weakly, reaching for something in his pocket. Lucas Cole, my daddy said, he said to find you. If anything happened. The world stopped. David Cole, David who'd worked on their bikes for 10 years. David who'd never worn a patch, but had been more brother than half the men who did. David who'd died 8 months ago in a car accident that never sat right with any of them. David had a son, David's son was here, beaten, starving, begging not to be sent back. Hammer felt something shift in his chest, something old and protective and absolutely lethal. "Get him inside," he said. "Now, detectives, them." Mama Jean was already moving when they came through the door. 62 years old, built like a truck with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and hands that had stitched up more knife wounds than most ER doctors. She'd run the Angels' kitchen for 15 years, ever since she'd shown up at their door with two black eyes and nowhere else to go. She took one look at Lucas and her face went pale. "Clear the back table," she ordered. "Someone get me warm water. Not hot, warm, and blankets. Now." The bar transformed. Men who'd been drinking and laughing seconds ago moved with military precision. The pool table was abandoned. The music was cut. Someone produced a first aid kit. Someone else found blankets in the storage closet. Hammer laid Lucas on the cleared table as gently as if he were made of glass. The boy's eyes were open now, darting around the room, counting exits, tracking threats. The look of a child who'd learned that adults weren't safe. "You're okay," Hammer said. "Nobody here is going to hurt you, I promise." Lucas's hands shot out, grabbing Hammer's vest with surprising strength. "Don't let him take me back. Please. He's going to kill me. He told me he's going to make it look like an accident, just like he did with Daddy." The room went absolutely silent. Razor stepped forward. "What did you just say?" "The kid's traumatized," Stone said quickly. "He doesn't know what he's—" "Yes, I do." Lucas's voice cracked, but his eyes were clear, terrifyingly clear for a 6-year-old. "Uncle Frank killed my daddy. He messed with the brakes. I heard him on the phone laughing about it, saying nobody would ever know, saying the money would be his soon." Hammer felt his hands start to shake. "What money, Lucas?" "The insurance money. Daddy had insurance. $350,000. But Uncle Frank didn't get it. I got it. It goes to me when I turn 18. Unless," he stopped. His whole body started trembling. "Unless what, son? Unless I die first." Tears spilled down Lucas's cheeks, cutting tracks through the dirt. "Then he gets it all. He told me. He told me every day. He said I was worth more dead than alive. He said nobody would miss me. He said," his voice broke into quiz. Mama Jean moved in, gathering the boy against her chest, murmuring soft words in Spanish. But her eyes, when they met Hammer's, were ice cold. "Someone's been burning this child," she said, her voice tight with controlled rage. "Cigarettes on his arms. His back. I need to see how bad it is." Lucas went rigid. "No, no, please, don't look. He said if anyone saw, they'd take me away. They'd put me somewhere worse. Please." "Ew. Lucas," Hammer's voice cut through the panic. "Lucas, look at me." The boy looked. "I knew your father. David Cole was one of the best men I ever met. He trusted me with his life. He trusted me with his secrets. And I swear to God, on everything I am, I will not let anyone hurt you ever again. But I need you to show us what he did. Can you do that?" Lucas stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. Mama Jean lifted his shirt. Stone had seen combat, 3 tours in Afghanistan. He'd seen what IEDs did to human bodies. He'd seen the aftermath of drone strikes, of firefights, of interrogations gone wrong. None of it prepared him for this. The boy's back was a map of suffering. Circular burns, some fresh, some scarred over, arranged in deliberate patterns. Bruises in various stages of healing, yellow and purple and black, layered on top of each other like geological strata. Welts that could only have come from a belt. Cuts that looked like they'd been made with something sharp and deliberate. And they're burned into the skin between his shoulder blades, 3 letters, E. "Jesus Christ," Razor whispered. "Jesus Christ." Hammer stood motionless, staring at the damage done to this tiny body. His hands had curled into fists so tight, his knuckles had gone white. A vein pulsed in his temple. "How long?" His voice was barely human. "How long has he been doing this to you?" "Since Daddy died." Lucas's voice was small, muffled against Mama Jean's shoulder. "He said it was my fault Daddy died. He said I deserved it. He said nothing he said was true." Hammer cut him off. "Look at me, Lucas. Nothing he said was true. Your father loved you more than anything in this world. He talked about you all the time. You were his whole life. You hear me? Lucas's face crumpled. Then why did he leave me? Why did he leave me with Uncle Frank? The question hung in the air unanswerable, because David hadn't known, couldn't have known. He'd trusted his half-brother, the only family he had left to take care of his son if something happened. And Frank had been waiting for this, planning for this, probably for years. We need to document this, Stone said quietly. Photographs, detailed notes, every single injury, and then we need to get him to someone who can know hospitals. Lucas jerked upright, panic flooding his face. Uncle Frank knows people. He has friends. He'll find out. He'll come and take me, and this time he'll really do it. He'll make it look like an accident. He said he has it all planned out. He said, hey, hey, hey. Hammer caught the boy's shoulders. Listen to me. No hospitals. Not yet. We're going to handle this ourselves. Okay, you trust me. Lucas searched his face for a long moment. Daddy trusted you. That's right. He did. Okay, the boy sagged with exhaustion. Okay. Mama Jean pulled his shirt back down gently, her jaw set in a hard line. I'm going to get you some food, mijo. Something gentle for your stomach. And then you're going to rest. Let the adults handle the rest. She turned toward the kitchen, pausing next to Hammer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I want that man dead. I want him to suffer first. And then I want him dead. Get in line, Hammer replied. The next hour was organized chaos. Mama Jean cooked while Lucas sat wrapped in blankets, eating chicken broth so slowly it was like watching someone relearn how to breathe. Stone photographed every injury with clinical precision, his military training turning horror into evidence. Razor and 3 others went out to sweep the area, making sure no one had followed the boy. And Hammer made phone calls. The first was to a woman named Sarah Chen, Sarah Chen, technically. Pediatric specialist at Blackwood General, 15 years of experience, one of the best in the state. Also 4 years ago, a woman whose daughter had been stalked by an ex-boyfriend who'd found out exactly what happened when you threaten someone under Hell's Angels protection. The ex-boyfriend had moved to Alaska. Nobody ever saw him again. Dr. Chen owed them. And tonight, Hammer was calling in that debt. I need you to come to the bar, he said, quietly. Off the books, there's a child here. 6 years old. Someone's been torturing him. I need documentation. I need a medical professional to verify what we're seeing, and I need it done without anyone finding out. Silence on the other end. Then I'll be there in 20 minutes. The second call was to Detective Marcus Wade. Wade was complicated. 30 years on the force, one of the few cops in the county who treated the angels like people instead of criminals. He'd worked David Cole's accident, and Hammer remembered the look on his face at the funeral, the way he'd kept asking questions even after the case was officially closed. Wade had known something was wrong, he just hadn't been able to prove it. It's Hammer. I need you to listen carefully, and I need you to not ask questions until I'm finished. He told him everything. David's son, the abuse, the confession, the cigarette burns spelling out words in a child's flesh. When he finished, Wade was quiet for a long time. Frank Mercer, he finally said. I looked into him after David's accident. Something felt off, but he was clean, no record, no complaints. Played the grieving brother-in-law perfectly. He's been playing everyone. Where's the boy now? Safe. Hammer. He's safe. That's all you need to know. I'm not letting him go into the system, Marcus. You know what happens to kids in the system? You know what happened to, he stopped himself. Wade's son who died of leukemia at age 8, but not before spending 6 months in a foster home during Wade's divorce. A foster home where things had happened, things that came out too late after the damage was done. I know, Wade said quietly. I know. What do you need from me? Time. I need you to slow walk whatever report Frank files. He's going to claim kidnapping. He's going to claim we took the boy. I need you to buy us enough time to build a case that even his lawyer friends can't dismiss. That's obstruction of justice. I could lose my badge. I know what I'm asking. Another long silence. David was a good man, Wade said finally. He fixed my daughter's car for free. That time she ran it into a telephone pole. Didn't even let me pay for parts. Said that's what neighbors do. Yeah, that was David. I'll give you 48 hours. After that, I can't guarantee anything. That's all I need. Hammer hung up. When he turned around, Stone was standing there holding a phone. You need to see this, Stone said. His voice was strange, hollow, like something had broken inside him. What? Frank Mercer's search history. Razor got into his cloud backup. He uses the same password for everything. Stone handed him the phone. Hammer looked at the screen. For a moment, nothing made sense. Just words. Search terms. Dates. Then his brain processed what he was seeing. Undetectable poisons, household items. Child accident statistics, drowning. How to disable brake lines. Guardian inherits if minor dies before 18. How long does a child's body take to... He stopped reading. His vision had gone red at the edges. It gets worse, Stone said. We ran his name through some databases. The kind cops don't have access to. Frank Mercer has had temporary custody of 3 other children over the past 12 years. Hammer looked up. Three, a niece in 2012, a foster child in 2016, another nephew in 2019. Where are they now? Stone's face was answer enough. All dead, all accidents, every single one. Drowning, fall down the stairs, allergic reaction, 3 children, 3 inheritances, 3 perfect accidents. Hammer's hands were shaking, not with fear, with rage so pure it was almost holy. He's a serial killer, Stone continued. He's been doing this for over a decade, targeting children in his own family, children without parent as children. Nobody would look too closely at if something went wrong. And Lucas was supposed to be number 4. Yes. Hammer looked across the bar to where Lucas sat still wrapped in blankets mechanically eating soup while Mama Jean stroked his hair. 6 years old, 43 pounds, covered in burns and bruises and scars that would never fully heal. And he'd walk 7 miles in the dark to find a man his father had trusted. Because his father had known. Somehow David had known. Maybe he'd figured it out too late. Maybe that's why the brakes on his car had failed. But he'd made sure his son knew where to run. What do we do? Stone asked. We can't just kill him. The kid needs us free. He needs us here. Hammer was quiet for a long moment. No, he finally said. We don't kill him. We destroy him. We take everything he's built. We expose every secret he has. We make sure he spends the rest of his miserable life in a cell surrounded by men who know exactly what he did to children. His eyes found Lucas across the room. And then we give that boy the family he deserves. Dr. Chen arrived at 11:47 p.m. She came alone carrying a medical bag and wearing civilian clothes. Nobody saw her enter. Nobody would remember she was here. She spent 45 minutes with Lucas, gentle and patient, asking permission before every touch. When she emerged, her face was professionally blank, but her hands were shaking. I've documented everything, she said quietly. 43 distinct injuries in various stages of healing. Evidence of systematic abuse spanning at least 6 months, possibly longer. Malnutrition consistent with prolonged food deprivation. Signs of psychological trauma that will require years of therapy. She paused, gathering herself. And something else. He has old fractures. Ribs, left arm, 2 fingers on his right hand. They healed wrong because they were never treated. This child has been suffering in silence for months and no one noticed. His school, Hammer asked. Teachers, anyone. Frank pulled him out of school 3 months ago. Claimed he was homeschooling. There's been no oversight, no check-ins, no one looking out for him at all. Razor punched the wall. The crack of impact echoed through the room. Someone should have seen, he growled. Someone should have done something. Someone is doing something now, Hammer said. That's what matters. Dr. Chen nodded. I'll file an official report, but I'm going to backdate the examination. As far as anyone knows, I saw him at a free clinic 3 days ago, and the report is just now reaching the authorities. That should buy you some time. Thank you. Don't thank me. She glanced toward the back room where Lucas had finally fallen asleep. Just make sure that monster never touches him again. At 2:34 a.m., Frank Mercer filed a police report. He was calm, collected, the picture of a concerned guardian. He explained that his troubled nephew had run away again, that the boy was mentally disturbed, that he'd been struggling with behavioral issues since his father's tragic death. He expressed deep concern for Lucas's safety. He suggested gently that the boy might have been taken by members of a local motorcycle gang with whom his late brother had unfortunately associated. He played the victim perfectly, but Detective Wade was watching his eyes, and in those eyes he saw something he recognized, something he'd seen in the eyes of men who'd done terrible things and gotten away with it so many times they'd started to believe they were untouchable. Pride, that's what it was. The subtle, barely hidden pride of a predator who'd outsmarted everyone. Not this time, Wade thought. Not this time. "We'll look into it, Mr. Mercer," he said. "These things take time. I'm sure the boy will turn up." Frank's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I certainly hope so. He's all I have left of my brother." At the bar, Lucas woke up screaming at 4 a.m. Hammer was there before the sound had faded. He'd been sitting in a chair outside the door, unable to sleep, running scenarios through his head. When the scream came, he was through the door in half a second. "No, no, please, I'll be good, I'll be good. Don't, Lucas, Lucas, wake up. You're safe, you're safe." The boy's eyes snapped open, wild with terror. For a moment, he didn't seem to know where he was. His hands came up defensive, protecting his face. Then he saw Hammer, saw the vest, saw the hammer patch over his heart, and he broke. The sobs that came out of him were the sobs of a child who'd been holding everything in for 8 months, who'd learned that crying meant punishment, who'd taught himself to suffer in silence because any other option was worse. He cried for his father, who'd been murdered by a man he trusted. He cried for his mother, who'd died giving birth to him, who he'd never even met. He cried for himself, for the boy he'd been before Uncle Frank, for the innocence that had been burned out of him one cigarette at a time. Hammer held him. He didn't say anything, didn't try to fix it, just held this tiny broken child and let him cry until there was nothing left. When the sobs finally faded to hiccups, Lucas spoke. "Is it true? Is what true son, what had Uncle Frank said, that I'm bound, that I make bad things happen, that Daddy died because of me?" Hammer pulled back, looking Lucas directly in the eyes. "You listen to me. Your daddy died because a bad man did a bad thing. You didn't cause it. You couldn't have stopped it. And the only person who is bad, the only person who deserves to be punished, is the man who hurt you. You are not bad. You are brave. You walked 7 miles in the dark to find help. Do you know how strong that is? How many adults wouldn't have the courage to do what you did?" Lucas's lip trembled. "I was scared." Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. Being brave means being scared and doing it anyway. Your daddy would be so proud of you, Lucas. So damn proud. The boy was quiet for a long moment. "What happens now?" Hammer took a deep breath. "Now we make sure Uncle Frank never hurts anyone ever again. And then we figure out where you belong." "I don't have anywhere." Lucas's voice was small. "Everyone's gone. I don't have anyone." Hammer looked at this child, David's child, the son of a man who'd been more brother to him than his own blood had ever been. "That's not true," he said. "You've got us." By dawn, everything was in motion. Dr. Chen's report had been filed. Detective Wade was quietly investigating. Stone was coordinating with contacts in 3 different agencies, feeding information, building a case that couldn't be ignored. And Razor was watching Frank Mercer. He'd been outside the man's house since 5 a.m., parked on a side street, just another motorcycle enthusiast enjoying the morning air. He watched Frank pace behind the windows, talking on the phone, gesturing angrily. Watched him throw a glass against the wall. Watched him check his watch over and over, clearly waiting for something. At 7:15 a.m., a black SUV pulled into Frank's driveway. 3 men got out. Big men, men with prison tattoos visible even from a distance. Men who moved like they knew how to hurt people. Razor's hand moved to his phone. "Hammer," he said quietly. "We've got a problem. Frank just got visitors, and they don't look like concerned neighbors." There was a long pause on the other end. "Stay on them. Don't engage. I want to know everything." "Copy that." Razor watched as the 3 men entered Frank's house. Through the window, he could see them talking, arguing. Frank was defensive, his hands up, backing away from the largest of the 3. Then the man hit him. Frank went down hard. The other 2 grabbed him, dragged him to his feet. The first man was in his face now, shouting something Razor couldn't hear. This wasn't a friendly visit. Hammer, Razor said slowly. Whatever's going on in there, it's bigger than we thought. Frank owes somebody, and they're not happy about being owed. Inside the house, Frank Mercer was learning what fear really felt like. The man holding him was named Victor. He worked for people who didn't file lawsuits when you owed them money. They filed obituaries. $180,000, Victor said, his accent thick with Eastern Europe. You promised it would be paid by now. You promised the boy would be dealt with. I'm handling it, Frank gasped. The kid ran away, but I'll find him. The police are looking. They'll bring him back, and then what, another accident? Victor laughed, but there was no humor in it. You've been promising us accidents for a month. The only accident I see is you. I just need more time. Time, Victor released him, letting him crumple to the floor. Time is money, and you have neither. He crouched down, bringing his face close to Frank's. Here is what will happen. You will find the ball, you will complete what you promised, and you will pay what you owe, all of it, by the 15th. That's 5 days. I know how a calendar works. Victor stood. If the boy is not dead by the 15th, we will take what you owe in other ways, starting with your fingers, then your eyes, and then when you have nothing left that we want, we will complete the job ourselves and take the money from your corpse. He smiled. The insurance, I mean. You didn't think we forgot about your policy? 200,000, yes, not as much as the boy, but it will have to do. Frank's face went white. You can't. 5 days, Mr. Mercer. Find the buy, finish the job, or become the job. They left without another word. Frank stayed on the floor for a long time, staring at the ceiling, thinking about a 6-year-old child who'd walked into the arms of the one group of people in the world he couldn't touch. And for the first time in his life, he felt the walls closing in. Back at the bar, Hammer listened to Razor's report with growing unease. Loan sharks, he said. Frank owes money to loan sharks. Serious ones from the look of it. Russian, maybe? Professional. How much? I heard something about 180,000. Hammer's jaw tightened. $180,000. Almost exactly half of Lucas's inheritance. It made sense now. Frank hadn't just wanted the money, he'd needed it, desperately. He'd probably borrowed against the expected inheritance, promising to pay it back when the boy's death made him rich. But Lucas had run. And now Frank was trapped between a child he couldn't find and criminals who wouldn't wait. This changes things, Stone said. Frank isn't just a danger, he's desperate. And desperate men do desperate things. It also means he's got resources, Hammer replied. If he's in with these people, they might help him find the kid. They might come here looking. Let them come. Razor's voice was cold. I'd love to have a conversation with anyone who thinks hurting that boy is a good idea. No, Hammer's voice was firm. We do this clean. We get Frank locked up so tight his grandchildren will feel the bars. We expose the loan sharks to the feds. And we keep Lucas so far away from all of it that he never has to be scared again. He looked around at the men who'd followed him for years. Men who'd done things society would never forgive. Men who'd been cast out, written off, dismissed as the worst humanity had to offer. And yet here they were ready to go to war for a child they'd just met. 48 hours, Hammer said. That's what Wade gave us. In 48 hours, we need enough evidence to bury Frank forever. And we need to find out everything about whoever he owes money to. Names, locations, everything. Stone nodded. I'll reach out to my contacts. FBI might be interested if there's a trafficking angle. Do it. Mama Jean appeared in the doorway. The boy's awake. He's asking for you. Hammer took a breath. Let it out slowly. Tell him I'll be right there. Lucas was sitting up when Hammer entered the blankets pulled around his waist. In the morning light streaming through the window, the bruises looked even worse. The burns stood out like brands, but his eyes were clearer. Some of the terror had faded, replaced by something that might have been hope. Good morning, Hammer said. Good morning. Lucas hesitated. I thought maybe I dreamed it. Coming here, finding you. No dream. Hammer pulled up a chair, sitting down heavily. You're really here, and you're really safe. For how long? The question hit harder than any punch Hammer had ever taken. For as long as you need to be, he said. For as long as I'm breathing. Lucas was quiet for a moment. Then slowly he reached into the pocket of his torn pajamas and pulled out a piece of paper. A drawing. Daddy made this, he said, the night before the accident. He gave it to me and told me to keep it secret. He told me if anything ever happened to him, I should find the man who looked like this. He handed the drawing to Hammer. It was rough done in crayon, clearly made in a hurry. But the image was unmistakable. A massive man with a silver beard wearing a leather vest. And on the vest, right over the heart, a hammer. At the bottom in David's handwriting, "He'll protect you. He'll never let you down." Hammer stared at the drawing, at the words written by a dead man, at the trust David had placed in him, trust he hadn't even known about until last night. His eyes burned. "Your daddy," he said slowly, "was the best man I ever knew. And I swear on his memory I will spend the rest of my life making sure you're okay. Whatever it takes, whatever I have to do. You're one of us now, Lucas." The boy's eyes filled with tears. "Promise, so." Hammer reached out and took his small hand. "Promise, Ray." At 9:00 a.m., Frank Mercer walked into the Blackwood police station. He was calm again, composed. The bruise from Victor's punch was hidden under makeup, the fear pushed down deep where no one could see it. He was here to file an amended report, to add details, to push the investigation forward. He needed that boy found, and he needed it now. Detective Wade met him in the lobby. "Mr. Mercer, good to see you. Any news on Lucas?" "That's what I'm here about." Frank's voice was steady, concerned, perfectly pitched. "I've been thinking about where he might have gone, and I remembered something. My brother David, before he died, he had some unfortunate associations. A motorcycle gang, the Hells Angels. I think Lucas might have gone to them." Wade's expression didn't change. "What makes you think that?" "David used to talk about them, tell stories. Lucas was impressionable, you know. He might have gotten it into his head that these criminals were some kind of heroes. I'm worried they might be influencing him." "Influencing him how? I don't know." Frank's jaw tightened. "But I want him back. He's just a boy. He doesn't understand how dangerous those people are." Wade nodded slowly. "I'll look into it. I can give you names, addresses, whatever you need." "That won't be necessary, Mr. Mercer. We know where to find them." Frank's eyes flickered with something that might have been hope. "You'll bring him home." "We'll do what's right," Wade said. "That's what we do." Wade watched Frank leave, watched him climb into his car and drive away, watched until the vehicle disappeared around the corner. Then he pulled out his phone. "Hammer, it's Wade. He just left the station. He's pushing hard to get the boy back. Threw your name around trying to make it sound like you kidnapped him." "Expected that. I bought you as much time as I could, but my captain is asking questions. 48 hours is going to be tight. We're working on it." "Work faster." "And Hammer, doom?" "Yeah." Wade paused, choosing his words carefully. "I saw his face when he talked about Lucas. There was nothing there. No real emotion, just performance. I've seen of a lot of bad people in my career, a lot of men who did terrible things, but this guy," he trailed off. "What?" This guy scares me, and I don't scare easy." Hammer's voice was grim. "Good. That means you're paying attention." The morning passed in a blur of activity. Stone worked the phones, calling in every favor he'd ever earned. Contacts in the FBI, friends in the state attorney's office, people who knew people who knew people. The case against Frank was building, but it needed more. More evidence, more testimony, more documentation. Razor continued his surveillance, watching Frank's house, following his movements, cataloging everyone he talked to. The loan sharks didn't return, but Frank made 3 phone calls that seemed to agitate him, pacing behind his windows, throwing things. And Lucas, wrapped in blankets on the bar's worn couch, slowly began to tell his story. Mama Jean sat with him, patient and gentle, letting him talk at his own pace. The words came in fragments at first. Scattered images, disconnected memories. But gradually they began to form a picture. The first beating had happened the day after David's funeral. Frank had come home drunk, angry about something, and Lucas had asked when Daddy was coming back. The question had earned him a backhand that split his lip. He said Daddy was never coming back. He said I'd better get used to it. He said I belonged to him now. The cigarette burns had started a month later. Punishment for crying, for asking questions, for existing. He would hold my arm and press it in. He said it was the only way I'd learn. He said bad kids needed to be marked so everyone could see what they really were. The isolation had been gradual. First, Frank pulled him out of soccer, then piano lessons, then school itself, claiming Lucas needed special education that could only be provided at home. He said people wouldn't understand. He said if I told anyone, they'd take me away and put me somewhere worse. He said at least he gave me food sometimes. The overheard conversation had happened 2 weeks ago. Lucas had been hiding in his closet trying to avoid Frank's attention when he'd heard his uncle on the phone. He was laughing. He said the brat won't last much longer, and by the time anyone notices, I'll be in Mexico. He said he had it all figured out. He said it would look just like what happened to Daddy. And that night, Lucas had remembered the drawing, his father's last gift, his father's last words. If anything happens to me, find Hammer. So he'd waited, planned, gathered his courage. And 3 nights ago, when Frank had passed out drunk on the couch, Lucas had walked out the front door and started walking. 7 miles, 6 years old, 43 pounds, barefoot because Frank had taken his shoes to stop him from running, and he'd found exactly who he was looking for. I'm sorry about your shoes, Hammer said quietly when Mama Jean reported the story. Remind me to buy that kid the best damn pair of sneakers in the country. He's going to need more than shoes, Mama Jean replied. He's going to need years of therapy, love, stability, someone who shows up every single day and proves that adults can be trusted. Hammer looked at her. You think I can't do that? I think you can. She smiled slightly. I also think it's the hardest thing you've ever done. Harder than anything you've survived before. Loving a broken child back to wholeness. It takes everything you have and then demands more. I've got more. I know. She touched his arm gently. That's why David sent him to you. At 2:47 p.m., everything changed. Stone burst through the bar's back door, his face pale, his phone clutched in his hand. We've got a problem. Hammer looked up from the map he'd been studying, planning escape routes just in case. What? The loan sharks, Victor and his crew. They're not just criminals. They're connected to something bigger. Much bigger. How much bigger? Stone set his phone on the table. On the screen was a photograph. 3 children, faces obscured, being led into a van by men in dark clothing. They run a trafficking network. Kids mostly. They find vulnerable children, children without parents, children in the system, and they disappear them, sell them overseas. Frank isn't just in debt to them, he's been supplying them. Hammer's blood went cold. What? The other 3 kids, the ones Frank had custody of before, the ones who supposedly died in accidents. There's no death certificates, no graves, nothing. They just vanished. The room was silent. He wasn't killing them, Stone continued. He was selling them, taking their inheritance money and then selling them to these people. And when they were gone, he'd report them dead, file the insurance claims, move on to the next victim. Hammer felt his hands start to shake. And Lucas was supposed to be next, but he was different. David's will was ironclad. Lucas couldn't be disappeared without a lot of questions. So Frank had to do it the hard way. Make it look like a real death, an accident, something that would hold up to scrutiny. That's why he was planning to kill him. Yes, Stone's voice was hollow. Frank couldn't sell Lucas, so he was going to murder him. And now that the kid's gone, now that Frank can't deliver, Victor is going to come looking, not just to kill Frank, to take Lucas anyway. Hammer stood so fast his chair crashed to the floor. Where is the boy? Where is Lucas right now? I'm here. The small voice came from the doorway. Lucas stood there, blanket wrapped around his shoulders, eyes wide. He'd heard everything. They want to take me, his voice trembled. Like they took the others. Hammer moved toward him, hands out non-threatening. Lucas, did Uncle Frank sell them? Did he sell kids to those men? There was no good answer, no way to make this okay. So Hammer told the truth. Yes. Lucas absorbed this. His face went through a dozen emotions in seconds: horror, grief, rage, fear, and finally something that looked almost like relief. Then I'm glad I ran, he said quietly. I'm glad I found you. Hammer knelt down, putting himself at eye level. And Lucas, listen to me. Those men are never going to touch you. I don't care who they are. I don't care how many of them there are. I don't care what we have to do to stop them. You are safe, you hear me? You are safe. Lucas looked at him for a long moment, then slowly he nodded. I believe you. The next 6 hours tested everything Hammer thought he knew about patience. Lucas hadn't let go of his hand since the revelation about the trafficking network. The boy's grip was surprisingly strong for someone so small, so malnourished, so broken. Like he was holding on to a lifeline in a storm that threatened to sweep him away forever. We need to move him, Stone said, pulling Hammer aside while Mama Jean distracted Lucas with food. If Victor's people come looking, the bar's the first place they'll check. Everyone in town knows this is our headquarters. Where do you suggest? I have a cabin, up in the mountains about 40 miles north. Off-grid, no records connecting it to me or the club. We could keep him there until this blows over. Hammer shook his head. Running isn't the answer. We run now, we'll be running forever. These people don't forget. They don't forgive. The only way Lucas is ever truly safe is if we eliminate the threat entirely. And how do you propose we do that? Before Hammer could answer, Razor burst through the door. Frank's on the move. He just left his house with a duffel bag. Looks like he's planning to rob it. Hammer's jaw tightened. If Frank disappeared, if he managed to slip away before they could build a case against him, everything they'd worked for would collapse. The evidence would be questioned, the investigation would stall, and Lucas would spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder. Follow him. Don't let him out of your sight, but do not engage. You understand me? We need him alive and we need him in custody. Razor nodded and was gone. Stone watched him go, then turned back to Hammer. What's the play here? We've got maybe 36 hours before Wade can't hold off his captain anymore. Frank's trying to run. Victor's crew is hunting for the kid. And we're stuck in the middle with a 6-year-old who's already been through hell. Hammer looked across the room to where Lucas sat mechanically eating a sandwich, his eyes never leaving the door. Watching, waiting, ready to run again if he had to. That kid had been running his whole life, from the moment his mother died, from the moment his father was murdered, from the moment Frank had started burning letters into his skin. No more running. We go on offense, Hammer said quietly. We don't wait for them to come to us. We bring the war to them. Stone's eyebrows rose. That's a dangerous game. So is doing nothing. Hammer pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in 3 years. A number belonging to someone who'd left a life gone straight, built a new identity in a new city. Someone who owed him everything. The phone rang twice. Hello. Ghost, it's Hammer. Silence on the other end, then a long exhale. I told you never to call this number. I know, and I wouldn't if I had any other choice. But there's a kid ghost, a 6-year-old boy, and some very bad people want to make him disappear. Another pause. What kind of bad people? The kind you used to work for, before you got out. The silence stretched so long, Hammer thought the line had gone dead. Tell me everything, Ghost finally said. So Hammer did. 20 minutes later, Ghost called back. Victor Kozlov, he said, and that's who you're dealing with. Russian mob, but freelance. He runs a specialty operation out of Nevada, kidnapping to order. Rich clients overseas pay premium prices for specific products, young preferably, healthy, no paper trail. Hammer's stomach turned. How do you know this? Because I used to move money for them before I realized what I was actually helping fund. Ghost's voice was heavy with old guilt. Victor's operation is small but efficient. 6 men total, including him. They rotate safe houses every 2 weeks. Current location is an industrial property outside Henderson. I can get you the address. That's not enough. We need evidence, something that ties Victor to the trafficking, ties Frank to the network, something the feds can't ignore. Victor keeps records. He's paranoid about being cheated by his clients, so he documents everything. Photographs, videos, transaction records. It's all on a server at the Henderson location. You get access to that server, you bring down the whole operation. How do we get access? Ghost laughed bitterly. You don't. The place is a fortress. Armed guard surveillance systems reinforce doors. You'd need an army to breach it. Hammer looked around the bar, at the men who'd followed him through decades of loyalty and sacrifice, at the patches on their vests, symbols of a brotherhood that transcended blood. I've got an army, he said. What I need is a plan. The next 3 hours were a masterclass in tactical coordination. Stone reached out to his military contacts, pulling satellite imagery of the Henderson property. Razor continued tracking Frank, who'd driven to a motel on the edge of town and was holed up in room 112, apparently waiting for something. Ghost provided detailed layouts of Victor's operation, including guard rotations, security protocols, and the location of the server room. Meanwhile, Hammer made the hardest decision of his life. He had to tell Lucas. The boy deserved to know what was happening, deserved to understand why these men were putting their lives on the line, deserved the truth, even if that truth was terrifying. He found Lucas in the back room, sitting on the floor with his back against the wall, knees pulled to his chest, the position of a child who'd learned to make himself small, invisible, unthreatening. "Hey, Wesh," Hammer said softly, lowering himself to the floor beside him. His knees protested the movement, old injuries making themselves known, but he ignored the pain. "How are you holding up?" Lucas shrugged, a gesture that said everything and nothing. "I need to talk to you about something," Hammer continued. "Something important. Is that okay?" The boy's eyes met his, wary, waiting. "The men who want to hurt you. We're going to stop them. Tonight. But I need you to understand something first." "What?" Hammer chose his words carefully. "Your uncle made deals with very bad people. People who hurt children. He was going to give you to them, Lucas. That's why he was treating you the way he did. He wanted to break you, make you easier to take." Lucas's face went pale, but he didn't look away. "But here's the thing," Hammer said. "We found out about them. We know where they are. We know what they're planning, and tonight we're going to make sure they never hurt anyone ever again. Not you, not any other kid. Never." "How?" "We're going to their hideout. We're going to get evidence of what they've done, and then we're going to hand them over to the people who can put them in prison forever." Lucas was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the question Hammer had been dreading. "What if you don't come back?" The words hit like a physical blow. "Lucas, Daddy didn't come back. He went to work and he never came back. What if you go tonight and you never come back either?" Hammer felt something crack in his chest. This boy, this tiny, broken, impossibly brave boy. He'd already lost everyone who'd ever loved him. And now he was asking if he was about to lose someone else. "Look at me," Hammer said. "Look at my face." Lucas looked. "I am coming back. You hear me? I've survived things that would kill most men. I've been shot, stabbed, beaten, left for dead. And I'm still here, I'm still breathing. Because I'm too stubborn and too mean to quit." A ghost of a smile flickered across Lucas's face. "I am coming back," Hammer repeated. "And when I do, that monster who hurt you is going to be in handcuffs. The men who wanted to take you are going to be in prison. And you and me, we're going to figure out what happens next together, okay?" Lucas studied him for a long moment, searching for the lie, looking for the betrayal that experience had taught him to expect. He didn't find it. "Okay," he whispered. Hammer pulled him into a hug. The boy stiffened at first, still not used to contact that didn't come with pain. Then slowly he relaxed, his small arms wrapped around Hammer's massive frame, holding on tight. "I believe you," Lucas said into his chest. "Daddy said you'd protect me. I believe you." Hammer closed his eyes and made a silent promise to a dead man. "I won't let you down, David. I swear to God, I won't let you down." At 6:47 p.m., Razor called with news that changed everything. "Frank's not running," he said. "He's meeting someone. A woman just showed up at his motel room. Blonde, maybe 40, expensive car. They've been talking for 20 minutes. "Who is she?" "I ran her plates. The car is registered to a Margaret Simmons. She's a lawyer, family law specialist. And here's the kicker, she's represented Victor's organization before. Got 2 of his men off on trafficking charges 3 years ago." Hammer's mind raced. A lawyer. Frank was talking to Victor's lawyer, which meant Frank was trying to cut a deal, trying to save himself by offering something valuable. The only valuable thing Frank had left was information. Information about Lucas. He's going to tell them where the boy is, Hammer said. He's going to sell out Lucas in exchange for his own life. That's what I figured. Can you get closer? Hear what they're saying. I can train them. Do it. And Razor, whatever you hear, don't react. We need to know what Frank knows, and we need to know what he's telling them. The next 15 minutes were the longest of Hammer's life. He paced the bar like a caged animal, checking his phone every 30 seconds, running scenarios through his head. If Frank revealed their location, Victor's men could be here within the hour. They'd need to move Lucas immediately. But where the cabin was an option, but if Frank knew about Hammer's connection to Stone, he might know about the cabin too. Think. His phone buzzed. Got it, Razor said. Frank told her everything, the bar, the angels, the fact that we have the kid. She's on the phone with someone right now. Probably Victor. How long do we have? She's telling them to move tonight, while we're distracted. She said something about the angels planning something stupid and perfect opportunity to grab the boy. Hammer went cold. They knew. Victor's people knew the angels were planning an assault, which meant either they had surveillance on the bar or they had someone on the inside feeding them information. Either way, the plan had just gotten infinitely more complicated. Get back here, Hammer ordered. Now, we need to regroup. On my way. Hammer hung up and turned to find Stone watching him, arms crossed, face grim. They know, Stone said. It wasn't a question. They know. What do we do? Hammer's mind was racing, discarding options, calculating probabilities. Victor expected them to attack the Henderson compound, which meant Victor would be prepared for that attack. His men would be on high alert, his defenses fortified, his escape routes planned. But Victor also expected to grab Lucas while the angels were distracted, which meant Victor was sending someone here, tonight, while his main force held the compound, a trap within a trap. We split up, Hammer said slowly, the plan forming as he spoke. Victor thinks we're all going to Henderson, so that's exactly what we make him think. Half our guys head toward the compound, make a lot of noise, draw attention, but they don't engage, they're the distraction. And the other half, we stay here, we let Victor's men come to us, on our ground, our terms, and we take them down. Stone considered this. It's risky. If you're wrong about their numbers, I'm not wrong. Victor runs a small operation. Ghost said 6 men total. If he's fortifying the compound, he can only spare 2, maybe 3, for the snatch team. We can handle 3. And if Frank comes with them, Hammer's jaw tightened, then we handle Frank too. The next hour was controlled chaos. Hammer divided his forces with surgical precision. 8 men would head toward Henderson, taking the loudest, most obvious route possible. They'd stop at gas stations, make phone calls on unsecured lines, do everything possible to ensure Victor's surveillance picked them up. Meanwhile, Hammer, Stone, and 4 others would stay behind. They'd move Lucas to a secure room in the bar's basement, a space that had once been used for very different purposes, reinforced walls, single entrance, easily defensible. Then they'd wait. The trap was set, but Lucas wasn't having it. I want to stay with you, he said when Hammer explained the plan. I don't want to hide in the basement. Lucas. No. The boy's voice was firm in a way it hadn't been before. I'm not hiding anymore. Uncle Frank made me hide. He made me stay in my room, in my closet, under my bed. He made me small and quiet and invisible. I don't want to be invisible anymore. Hammer knelt down, putting himself at eye level. This isn't about making you small. This is about keeping you safe. If something happens up here, if things go bad, I need to know you're protected. I can't fight if I'm worried about you. Then don't worry about me. Lucas's eyes blazed with something that looked almost like defiance. I'm not scared of them anymore. I was scared for 8 months. I was scared every single day. But I'm not scared now because I found you, because Daddy was right. You're going to protect me, so let me watch you do it. Hammer stared at this child, this tiny, bruised, starving child who'd walked through hell and come out the other side with fire in his eyes. David's fire. David's stubborn, impossible, unbreakable spirit. He's got a point, Stone said quietly. If things go sideways better, he's where we can see him, then locked in a basement where we can't. Hammer hesitated. Every instinct screamed to protect the boy, to hide him away, to keep him as far from danger as possible. But Stone was right. If Victor's men somehow got past them, a locked basement would become a tomb. Fine, he said finally, but you stay behind me. You do exactly what I say exactly when I say it. And if I tell you to run, you run. No arguments, no hesitation. You run and you don't look back. Deal. Lucas nodded solemnly. Deal. At 9:23 p.m., the decoy team rolled out. 8 motorcycles thundered into the night, engines roaring, lights blazing. They took the main highway, making no effort to conceal their departure. Within minutes, Hammer's phone buzzed with confirmation from Ghost. Victor's surveillance picked them up. He's pulling his men back to the compound just like you predicted. But I'm seeing 2 vehicles leaving Henderson, heading your direction. Black SUV and a gray sedan. How many men? 3 in the SUV, 1 in the sedan, and Hammer. The sedan matches the description of Frank's car. So Frank was coming, leading the wolves straight to the lamb, hoping to buy his life with a child's blood. Hammer felt something cold and sharp settle in his chest. Not anger, something beyond anger, something that had no name. Let them come, he said. We'll be ready. The next 40 minutes were silence and shadow. Hammer positioned his men with military precision. 2 at the back entrance, 2 on the roof with clear sight lines to the parking lot, Stone at the main door, and Hammer himself in the center of the bar, Lucas behind him waiting. The boy was quiet, calm in a way that seemed impossible for someone his age. He'd stopped trembling hours ago, stopped flinching at sudden sounds. It was like the fear had burned away, leaving something harder in its place. Are you going to hurt them? Lucas asked softly. Hammer considered the question. Only if I have to. Uncle Frank hurt me every day, for months. He never had to. He wanted to. I know. So why don't you want to hurt him? It was a fair question, a question Hammer had been asking himself since the moment he'd seen those burns on the boy's back. Because hurting him doesn't fix what he did to you, he said finally. It doesn't heal the scars. It doesn't give you back the months he stole. Revenge feels good for a minute, maybe an hour, but it doesn't change anything. What changes things is making sure he can't hurt anyone else. What changes things is watching him spend the rest of his life in a cage knowing he lost. That's not about pain. That's about justice. Lucas was quiet for a long moment. Daddy would have liked you, he said. Hammer's throat tightened. I liked him too, kid. More than he probably knew. At 10:17 p.m., headlights appeared on the road. Stone's voice came through the radio, low and tense. 2 vehicles approaching, half-mile out, cutting their lights. They were trying to approach quietly, hoping to catch the angels off guard, hoping the decoy had worked. It had, just not the way Victor expected. Everyone hold position, Hammer ordered. Let them come to us. Wait for my signal. The vehicles crept closer. Hammer could hear the engines, now a low rumble in the darkness. The gray sedan was in front, Frank's car. The coward was letting Victor's men lead from behind, using them as a shield. The sedan stopped at the edge of the parking lot. The SUV pulled up beside it. Doors opened. 4 men emerged. 3 from the SUV, big-armed, moving with the confidence of people who'd done this before. And from the sedan, Frank Mercer. Thinner than Hammer expected, with nervous eyes that darted everywhere. Spread out, one of Victor's men ordered. 2 through the back. I'll take the front with Mercer. The kid's inside. Get in, grab him. Get out. 60 seconds. Frank's voice was high-strained. What about the angels? What about them? They're all on their way to Henderson. Place is empty. But what if... Shut up. The man grabbed Frank's collar, yanking him close. You said the boy was here. You said they wouldn't expect us. You said this would be easy, so it better be easy, because if it's not, Victor's going to be very disappointed. And you know what happens when Victor is disappointed. Frank's face went white. The man released him, gesturing to his companions. 2 of them peeled off, heading toward the back of the building. The leader and Frank approached the front door. Hammer waited. 3 seconds. 5. 10. The back door exploded inward. Hammer heard the sounds of combat, shouts, impacts, a single gunshot. Then silence. Then Stone's voice over the radio. 2 down, alive but unconscious. Back entrance secure. The leader heard it too. He froze, hand going to his weapon. It's a trap, he hissed. They knew. The front door opened. Hammer stood in the doorway, filling it completely. Behind him, barely visible, Lucas watched with wide eyes. Looking for someone? Hammer asked. The leader raised his gun. Hammer moved faster. His hand closed around the man's wrist, twisting, pulling. The gun fired once wild, the bullet disappearing into the night sky. Then Hammer's other hand came up, a single devastating punch that connected with the man's jaw and dropped him like a stone. Frank screamed. He turned to run, but Stone was already there, appearing from the shadows like a ghost. One arm wrapped around Frank's throat, not quite choking, just holding, controlling. Going somewhere? Stone asked. Frank's eyes found Hammer, found Lucas. Something ugly twisted in his face. He spat at the boy. You ruined everything, you stupid, worthless little... Hammer hit him, not hard enough to kill, not even hard enough to break bones, just hard enough to shut him up. Frank crumpled, blood streaming from his nose, whimpering on the ground. Lucas stepped forward. Hammer caught his shoulder. Stay back, son. No, the boy's voice was steady. I want to look at him. He walked to where Frank lay, small and fierce and completely unafraid. He stood over the man who'd tortured him for 8 months, the man who'd burned words into his skin, the man who'd killed his father and planned to sell him to monsters. You said I was worthless, Lucas said. You said nobody would ever want me. You said I was bad. Frank looked up, blood bubbling from his lips. You are bad. You were always bad. Just like your mother. Just like your... My daddy loved me. Lucas's voice cracked, but he didn't stop. He loved me so much he found people to protect me even after he died. You never loved anyone. You never protected anyone. You just hurt and hurt and hurt. Tears were streaming down the boy's face now, but his voice stayed strong. I'm not bad, you're bad, and now everyone's going to know. He turned away, walked back to Hammer, let himself be gathered into those massive arms. I want to go home now, he whispered. Hammer held him tight. You are home, son. You are home. The next 2 hours were chaos of a different kind. Detective Wade arrived with 4 patrol cars and a very large cup of coffee. He took one look at the scene, 3 unconscious men in zip ties, Frank Mercer bleeding on the ground, a 6-year-old boy wrapped in a blanket eating a peanut butter sandwich, and let out a long, slow breath. You know, he said, when I agreed to give you 48 hours, this wasn't exactly what I pictured. Life's full of surprises, Hammer replied. The men were loaded into ambulances under heavy guard. Frank was arrested on the spot, Wade personally reading him his rights, while Frank sobbed and begged and tried to bargain. I can give you Victor. I can give you the whole operation. I know where they keep the kids. I know everything. Just let me go, please. Please. Wade's face was stone. Frank Mercer, you're under arrest for the murder of David Cole, the attempted murder of Lucas Cole, child abuse, child trafficking, and whatever else we find when we dig into your miserable life. You have the right to remain silent. I strongly suggest you exercise it. He slammed the patrol car door in Frank's face. Meanwhile, at the Henderson compound, the situation was developing. The decoy team had done their job perfectly. Victor's men were so focused on the expected assault that they never noticed the FBI tactical team approaching from the north. Ghost's information had made its way through Stone's contacts up the chain to people who took child trafficking very seriously. The raid was swift and devastating. 6 arrests, 17 children recovered, ranging in age from 4 to 12, all slated for transport overseas within the week. And Victor Kozlov himself found in the server room, frantically trying to destroy evidence that was already being uploaded to federal databases. The operation was finished. The monster was in chains. Lucas learned about the other children the next morning. Hammer wasn't sure how to tell him, wasn't sure if he should tell him at all, but Dr. Chen, who'd returned to check on the boy's injuries, advised honesty. He's been through too much to be treated like a child, she said. He deserves to know that his bravery helped save lives. So Hammer told him, sat him down, explained that the men who'd wanted to hurt him had been hurting other children too. Explained that by finding the angels, by being brave enough to tell his story, Lucas had helped rescue 17 kids who might otherwise have disappeared forever. Lucas listened in silence. When Hammer finished, the boy's eyes were wet. They were going to take me to the same place. Yes. And now those kids are safe. Yes, because of you. Lucas thought about this for a long moment. Good, he finally said. That's good. But something had shifted in his expression. Something new was settling into place. The beginning of understanding that his suffering hadn't been meaningless, that something good had come from something terrible. The beginning of healing. That night, for the first time since his father died, Lucas slept through until morning. No nightmares, no screaming, no waking up in terror expecting Frank's face in the darkness. Hammer sat in the chair outside his door just like he had every night since Lucas arrived. But this time, instead of listening for distress, he listened to silence. Peaceful silence. Safe silence. And when morning came, when Lucas emerged, rubbing his eyes with that bewildered expression of someone who'd actually rested, Hammer felt something crack open in his chest. Hope. For the first time in years, actual hope. Good morning, Lucas said. Good morning, son. I'm hungry. Hammer laughed, a real laugh, rusty from disuse but genuine. Then let's get you some breakfast. They walked to the kitchen together, the massive biker and the tiny boy moving through morning light that felt somehow different than it had the day before. Brighter, warmer, like the start of something new. The peace lasted exactly 72 hours. Lucas was learning to smile again. Small smiles, tentative like a plant pushing through concrete. He'd started following Hammer everywhere, a tiny shadow in borrowed clothes that were still too big for his frame. Mama Jean had taken him shopping, bought him real pajamas, shoes that actually fit a jacket with a cartoon dinosaur on the back that he refused to take off. For 72 hours, things felt almost normal. Then the lawyer showed up. Her name was Victoria Cross. State-appointed child advocate, 46 years old with a reputation for being thorough, impartial, and completely immune to emotional appeals. She arrived at the bar on Tuesday morning in a gray sedan carrying a briefcase and wearing an expression that suggested she'd seen everything and been impressed by none of it. Hammer met her at the door. Mr. Morrison, she said, not Hammer, his legal name, the name on documents and tax returns, the name nobody used anymore. I'm here regarding the custody situation of Lucas Cole. I figured. May I come in? It wasn't really a question. Hammer stepped aside. Lucas was at the kitchen table working on a puzzle Mama Jean had bought him. 1,000 pieces, a picture of motorcycles. He looked up when the stranger entered, and Hammer saw the fear flash across his face before he suppressed it. Lucas, Victoria said, her voice professionally warm. My name is Victoria Cross. I'm here to make sure you're being taken care of properly. The boy's eyes darted to Hammer. It's okay, Hammer said. She's here to help. I'm here to assess, Victoria corrected. Whether I help depends on what I find. She spent the next 3 hours examining everything. The bar's living quarters, Lucas's temporary bedroom, the food in the kitchen, the clothes in his closet, the medical records Dr. Chen had provided. She interviewed Mama Jean Stone, even Razor taking detailed notes in a leather-bound journal. Finally, she sat down with Lucas. Hammer started to follow, but Victoria held up a hand. Alone, Mr. Morrison, standard protocol. He's 6 years old. He's been through hell. He doesn't need to be interrogated by a stranger. It's not an interrogation, it's an assessment, and the law requires it to be conducted without potential influence from interested parties. Interested parties, I'm the only reason that kid is alive, which is exactly why you can't be in the room. They stared at each other for a long moment. Victoria didn't blink, didn't back down. Whatever else she wasn't intimidated by a man twice her size with a criminal record. Hammer. Lucas's voice was small but steady. It's okay, I can talk to her. Hammer looked at the boy, at the trust in those blue eyes, at the courage that seemed impossible for someone so young. I'll be right outside, he said. You need me, you yell. Got it. Lucas nodded, the door closed. 45 minutes later, it opened again. Victoria emerged first, her expression unreadable. Lucas followed, looking tired but not upset. He went straight to Hammer, pressing against his side like he belonged there. Well, Harold? Hammer asked. Victoria tucked her notebook into her briefcase. I've completed my initial assessment. Lucas appears to be physically recovering, emotionally stable, and genuinely attached to the individuals caring for him. So he stays. For now. She met Hammer's eyes. But you need to understand something, Mr. Morrison. The state doesn't place children with motorcycle gang members. It doesn't matter how good your intentions are. It doesn't matter that you saved his life. The system has rules, and those rules exist to protect vulnerable children. The system failed him, Hammer said flatly. The system put him with Frank Mercer. The system let a serial killer torture a child for 8 months without anyone noticing. I'm aware of the system's failures in this case. That doesn't mean we abandon the system entirely. Then what happens? Victoria paused, choosing her words carefully. There will be a custody hearing. Given the circumstances, it's been expedited. 2 weeks from today. A judge will review all evidence, hear testimony from relevant parties, and make a determination about Lucas's permanent placement. Permanent placement meaning what? Foster care, group home, potentially adoption if a suitable family can be identified. Hammer felt Lucas's hand tighten on his. What about me? Victoria's expression softened slightly, just slightly. You can petition for guardianship, but I won't lie to you, Mr. Morrison. Your chances are not good. Criminal record, lifestyle, association with an organization that's been under federal investigation multiple times. Any judge in this state would think twice about placing a child in your care. I'm the one David Cole trusted, his father. He sent Lucas to me. A deceased parent's wishes carry some weight, but they're not determinative. The court's primary concern is the child's best interest, and frankly, most judges would argue that a biker bar is not in any child's best interest. Lucas spoke up. I want to stay here. Victoria looked at him, her professional mask slipping just a fraction. I know you do, sweetheart, and your preferences will be considered. But you're 6 years old. The court may decide that you don't fully understand what's best for you. I understand that Uncle Frank hurt me. I understand that Hammer saved me. I understand that this is the only place I feel safe. The words hung in the air. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. I'll include that in my report. She picked up her briefcase, heading for the door. 2 weeks, Mr. Morrison. I suggest you use the time wisely. Get a lawyer, document everything positive about Lucas's care, and pray that the judge assigned to this case has more imagination than most. She left. Hammer stood motionless, staring at the closed door. 2 weeks. 2 weeks to convince a system that had already failed Lucas once to give him a chance at a real family. 2 weeks to prove that a motorcycle gang was better for a child than the foster care system. Impossible odds, but then again, everything about the last week had been impossible. Hammer? Lucas's voice was small. Am I going to have to leave? Hammer looked down at the boy, at David's eyes in a stranger's face, at the trust that had taken so much courage to give. No, he said. You're not going anywhere, I promise. It was a promise he had no right to make, a promise that depended on lawyers and judges and a system designed to work against him. But he made it anyway, and he meant it. The next morning, Detective Wade showed up with news. Frank's talking, he said, accepting a cup of coffee from Mama Jean. Singing like a bird, actually, trying to cut a deal. What kind of deal? Reduced charges in exchange for testimony against Victor's network. Names, locations, financial records. He's got information that could bring down trafficking operations in 4 states. Hammer's jaw tightened. So he walks? Not a chance. The DA is using him for information, but he's not offering immunity. Frank's still facing murder charges. For David, attempted murder. For Lucas, plus the trafficking conspiracy. He's going away for life deal or no deal. The only question is whether he goes away in general population or protective custody. Protective custody, Wade smiled grimly. Turns out inmates don't like child abusers. Word's already spread about what Frank did. If he goes into Gen Pop, he won't last a month. Good. That's not the official position of the Blackwood Police Department. I didn't ask for the official position. Wade set down his coffee. There's something else. Frank's testimony included information about David's accident. Detailed information. How he sabotaged the brakes, how he made it look like mechanical failure, how he planned it for weeks. Hammer felt his hands curl into fists. We already knew that. We suspected it. Now we have a confession. David Cole's death is officially being reclassified as homicide. Frank's being charged with first-degree murder. The words hit harder than Hammer expected. David's murder. Confirmed, official. After 8 months of questions and suspicions and that nagging feeling that something wasn't right, finally the truth. Does Lucas know? Not yet. I figured you'd wanted to tell him yourself. Hammer nodded slowly. Yeah, I'll tell him. But not yet. The boy had been through enough. He deserved a few more days of peace before being forced to relive his father's death all over again. Wade stood to leave, then paused. The custody hearing. I heard about it. News travels fast. Small town. Wade met his eyes. I'm going to testify. On your behalf. Tell the judge what I saw, what you did, how you protected that boy when the system couldn't. That could hurt your career. My career's been hurting since I started asking questions about David's accident. What's one more bruise? He headed for the door. You're a good man, Hammer. I didn't always think so, but I do now. That kid's lucky to have you. He left before Hammer could respond. 3 days before the hearing, the nightmares came back. Lucas woke screaming at 3 a.m., thrashing in his bed, fighting invisible demons. By the time Hammer reached him, the boy was hyperventilating, eyes wild with terror, not seeing the room around him. Lucas, wake up. You're safe. You're safe. The boy's eyes focused, found Hammer's face. The panic slowly receded, replaced by shuddering sobs. He was here, Lucas gasped. Uncle Frank, he was standing over my bed. He had a cigarette. He said he was going to write more words. He said he was going to write, "Nobody wants you," on my chest. Hammer gathered the boy into his arms, held him tight, let him cry. He's not here. He can never hurt you again. He's in jail. He's never getting out. But what if the judge sends me away? What if they put me with someone like him again? That's not going to happen. You don't know that. You can't know that. The lady said the court decides. What if they decide wrong? It was the question Hammer had been asking himself for days. The question that kept him awake at night, staring at the ceiling, running scenarios through his head. What if they decide wrong? Listen to me, he said. Whatever happens in that courtroom, whatever the judge decides, I'm not giving up. If they try to take you, I'll fight. If they put you somewhere else, I'll find a way to get you back. If I have to spend every dollar I have, call in every favor I'm owed, burn down every bridge I've ever built, I will not stop fighting for you. You understand me? Lucas looked up at him, tears still wet on his cheeks. Why what? Why do you care so much? I'm not your son. You didn't even know I existed until last week. Why does it matter to you what happens to me? Hammer was quiet for a moment, searching for words that would make sense to a 6-year-old. Your father was my brother, he said finally. Not by blood, by choice. He chose to trust me. He chose to be there for me. And when he died, when I found out what happened to him, something broke inside me. I didn't even know it was broken until you showed up. He pulled back, looking Lucas in the eyes. You're not my son by blood, but you're my family by choice. Your father's choice. My choice. And family doesn't give up on each other. Family fights. Family protects. Family shows up even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Lucas stared at him for a long moment. Daddy used to say that family shows up. He learned it from us. And now I'm saying it to you. I'm showing up, Lucas. Today, tomorrow, and every day after. No matter what any judge says. The boy was quiet. Then slowly he nodded. Okay. I believe you. He settled back against Hammer's chest, small and warm and impossibly trusting. Can you stay until I fall asleep? I'm not going anywhere, kid. Hammer sat there in the darkness holding David's son, listening to his breathing slowly even out. And he made a silent vow to whatever power might be listening. I will not fail this child. Whatever it takes, I will not fail him. The hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Thursday. Hammer arrived at the courthouse at 7:30 wearing a suit for the first time in 15 years. Stone had helped him pick it out something respectable, but not flashy. Mama Jean had trimmed his beard, tamed his hair, as much as it could be tamed. He looked almost civilized. Almost. Lucas walked beside him, holding his hand. The boy was dressed in new clothes, clean, and pressed his blonde hair neatly combed. But his eyes were darting everywhere, counting exits, watching strangers ready to run. Old habits die hard. The courtroom was smaller than Hammer expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, an American flag in the corner. Rows of benches like church pews, mostly empty this early in the morning, but not entirely empty. Stone was there. Razor, Mama Jean, 6 other angels all in clean clothes with their cuts hidden under jackets. They'd shown up without being asked, filling an entire row, a wall of support that made something tight in Hammer's chest loosen just slightly. Detective Wade sat near the front, nodding at Hammer as he entered. Dr. Chen was there too, holding a folder of medical records. And in the front row across the aisle sat a woman Hammer didn't recognize. 50-ish, well-dressed, professional. She was watching Lucas with an intensity that made Hammer's instincts prickle. "Who's that?" he murmured to Stone. "Don't know. She came in about 10 minutes ago. Been staring at the kid ever since." Before Hammer could investigate further, a door opened and the judge entered. The Honorable Helen Martinez, 63 years old, 22 years on the family court bench, with a reputation for being fair but firm. Hammer had researched her obsessively over the past 2 weeks, reading old case files, talking to lawyers who'd appeared before her, trying to understand what kind of person would decide Lucas's fate. The consensus was mixed. She was smart, she was thorough. She didn't suffer fools, and she had a history of making unconventional decisions when she believed they served a child's best interest. It was that last part Hammer was counting on. "This court is now in session," the bailiff announced, "in the matter of custody for minor child Lucas Cole." Judge Martinez settled into her chair, studying the documents in front of her. Her eyes moved methodically, missing nothing. "I've reviewed the preliminary reports," she said. "This is an unusual case. A child removed from an abusive guardian through irregular means, currently residing with individuals who have no legal standing to care for him. Before we proceed, I want to hear from everyone with a stake in this outcome." She looked at Hammer. "Mr. Morrison, you're petitioning for permanent guardianship." "Yes, Your Honor." "Tell me why you believe you're the appropriate placement for this child." Hammer stood. His lawyer, a woman named Patricia Holmes, who'd been recommended by Wade, had prepared him for this. She'd coached him on what to say, how to say it, what to avoid. He ignored all of it. "Your Honor, 11 days ago, a 6-year-old boy walked into my bar. He'd traveled 7 miles barefoot in the middle of the night. He was starving, beaten, covered in cigarette burns. His uncle had been torturing him for 8 months, and he was about to be murdered for his inheritance." He paused, letting the words settle. "That boy came to me because his father trusted me. David Cole was one of the best men I've ever known, and he made sure his son knew where to find help if anything happened. I didn't know Lucas existed until he showed up at my door. But the moment I saw him, the moment I understood what had been done to him, I made a choice. I chose to protect him. I've been protecting him ever since. With all due respect, Mr. Morrison, protection isn't the same as parenting." "No, ma'am, it's not. I don't know anything about being a parent. I've never had kids, never wanted them honestly, but I know about keeping my word. I know about showing up when people need you. I know about loyalty and sacrifice and fighting for something bigger than yourself." He gestured to the row of angels behind him. "Every person in that row would die for that boy, not because they have to, because they choose to, because he's one of us now. And in my world, that means something. It means everything." Judge Martinez studied him for a long moment. "You have a criminal record, Mr. Morrison. Assault, weapons charges, association with the known motorcycle gang." "Yes, ma'am. I've done things I'm not proud of. Served my time for most of them. But I've never hurt a child. I've never betrayed someone who trusted me. And I've never, not once in my entire life, broken a promise." "And what promise have you made to Lucas?" Hammer looked at the boy sitting small and scared in the front row. "That he's safe, that he's wanted, that he'll never be alone again." The courtroom was silent. Then the mysterious woman in the front row stood up. "Your Honor, if I may," Judge Martinez frowned. "And you are Margaret Cole, Your Honor, David Cole's sister, Lucas's aunt." The words hit Hammer like a physical blow. David had never mentioned a sister. In all the years they'd known each other, all the late nights and long rides and honest conversations, David had never once spoken of any family besides his son and his half-brother, Frank. Lucas's face had gone white. "I didn't know Daddy had a sister," he whispered. Neither did anyone else. Margaret stepped forward, her posture perfect, her expression carefully neutral. I've been estranged from my brother for 15 years, Your Honor. Family disagreements. I won't bore the court with details. But when I learned of David's death, and more importantly, when I learned what happened to my nephew, I knew I had to come forward. What exactly are you proposing, Ms. Cole? Custody, Your Honor, full custody. I'm Lucas's closest living blood relative. I have the means to provide for him, the stability to raise him properly, and the legal standing that Mr. Morrison lacks. Hammer's lawyer was on her feet. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We had no notice of this claim, no opportunity to investigate this person's background or intentions. I only learned of the hearing yesterday, Margaret said smoothly. I came as quickly as I could. Convenient timing, Stone muttered. Judge Martinez held up a hand. I'm going to allow Miss Cole to present her case, but I'm also going to order a full investigation into her background and her relationship with the deceased. This hearing is recessed until tomorrow morning. I expect all parties to be prepared to address this new development. She banged her gavel, and just like that, everything changed. Outside the courthouse, Hammer cornered Margaret Cole before she could reach her car. Who the hell are you? She turned unruffled by his aggression. I told you, David's sister. David never mentioned having a sister. David and I weren't close. That doesn't mean I don't exist. Why now? Where were you when Lucas was being tortured? Where were you when Frank was planning to murder him? Margaret's composure flickered. Just for a second. I didn't know. I had no idea what was happening. But you know now, and suddenly you want custody? He's my nephew, my blood, the only family I have left. Her voice hardened. You might have saved him, Mr. Morrison, but that doesn't make you his parent. It doesn't give you the right to raise him. I can give Lucas a normal life, a real home, opportunities you can't even imagine. What Lucas needs isn't money or opportunities. He needs people who love him. And you love him. After 11 days, Hammer stepped closer. I'd die for him, would you? Margaret didn't answer. That's what I thought. He turned and walked away, his mind racing. Something was wrong here. Something didn't add up. David had kept many secrets, but a sister he'd never mentioned, who'd suddenly appeared to claim his son. He pulled out his phone and dialed Stone. I need you to find out everything about Margaret Cole, everything, where she lives, what she does, why she was estranged from David, and I need it fast. On it. Hammer hung up and looked back at the courthouse. Lucas was standing on the steps, small and alone, watching Margaret drive away. The boy's face was unreadable, but his hands were shaking. That night, Stone delivered his report. Margaret Cole, 51 years old, lives in San Francisco, works in finance hedge fund management. Net worth somewhere north of $12 million. That explains how she can afford to raise him. There's more. She was estranged from David because of an incident 18 years ago. Some kind of family dispute over their parents' estate. David accused her of manipulating their mother during her final years, changing the will, cutting him out of his inheritance. Hammer's eyes narrowed. Money. It was about money. Gets worse. I've found court records. David actually sued her. Case was dismissed, but the language in his filing was brutal. He called her a predator, said she'd been manipulating vulnerable people her entire life. And now she wants his son. Lucas's inheritance is sitting in a trust, $350,000. But that's not all. David had a life insurance policy that Frank didn't know about, one he took out separately years ago. Beneficiary is Lucas. But if Lucas is adopted before he turns 18, the adoptive parent becomes the trustee. Hammer felt cold. How much is the policy worth? $2 million. The number hung in the air. She doesn't want Lucas, Hammer said slowly. She wants his money, just like Frank did. That's my read, but we can't prove it. She's got lawyers, she's got resources, and unlike Frank, she doesn't have a criminal record. Hammer was silent for a long moment. We need to talk to Lucas. He needs to know what's happening. He's 6 years old. He's been through more in 6 years than most people face in a lifetime. He deserves the truth. Stone nodded slowly. You're right, but Hammer, be careful how you tell him. That kid's already had his trust destroyed once. If he thinks another adult is trying to use him, I know. Hammer found Lucas in his room, not sleeping, just sitting on the bed with his dinosaur jacket clutched to his chest. Hey, kid. Hey, Hammer sat down beside him. Rough day. Yeah. You want to talk about it? Lucas was quiet for a moment. Then in a small voice, is she really my aunt? We're trying to find out. If she's Daddy's sister, does that mean I have to go with her? Hammer chose his words carefully. It means the judge has to decide what's best for you, and that's complicated now. I don't want to go with her, Lucas's voice cracked. I don't know her. She never came to see me. She never called. If she was really Daddy's sister, why didn't Daddy ever tell me about her? Your daddy had his reasons for keeping things private. Sometimes adults make choices to protect the people they love. But Lucas looked up at him, eyes filling with tears. But she smiled at me. In the courtroom. She smiled like she was happy, but her eyes weren't happy. Her eyes were like Uncle Frank's eyes, calculating. Hammer went very still. You noticed that? I learned to notice. With Uncle Frank, I had to watch his eyes to know if he was going to hurt me. The eyes never lie, even when the mouth does. 6 years old. 6 years old and already an expert in reading predators. Lucas, I need you to listen to me. Whatever happens in that courtroom tomorrow, whatever the judge decides, I am not going to let anyone hurt you again. If Margaret is dangerous, we'll prove it. If she's using you to get money, we'll expose her. But I need you to trust me. I trust you. Even if things look bad, even if it seems like we're losing. Lucas reached out and took his hand. Daddy sent me to you. He wouldn't send me to someone who would give up. Hammer felt his throat tighten. No, he said. He wouldn't. They sat together in the darkness, hand in hand, while the clock ticked toward tomorrow. And somewhere across town, Margaret Cole made a phone call. It's going better than expected, she said. The judge is sympathetic to blood relatives. By this time tomorrow, I'll have custody. A pause. Yes, I'm aware of the timeline. Once the adoption is finalized, I'll have access to the trust and the insurance. Full control. The boy can go to boarding school in Europe, somewhere far away where he won't cause problems. Another pause. Longer this time. No one suspects anything. These bikers are too stupid to see what's right in front of them. By the time they figure it out, it'll be too late. She hung up and smiled. Hammer didn't sleep that night. He sat in his chair outside Lucas's room, phone in hand, waiting for Stone to call back. Every hour brought new information, each piece darker than the last. At 2 a.m., Stone confirmed that Margaret Cole had been sued twice for elder fraud. Both cases settled out of court with sealed records. At 3 a.m., Ghost traced her financial accounts. She'd lost nearly $8 million in bad investments over the past 3 years. Her hedge fund was hemorrhaging money. Creditors were circling. At 4 a.m., the final piece fell into place. I found it, Stone said, his voice tight with controlled fury. She's connected to Victor's network. Hammer's blood ran cold. What? Not directly, she's too smart for that. But one of her investment clients is a shell company that funnels money to the same accounts Victor used for trafficking payments. She's been laundering their money for at least 5 years. She knows about the trafficking. She more than knows. She's profiting from it. And Hammer, there was something else. I found emails, encrypted, but Ghost cracked them. Margaret's been in contact with Frank Mercer for the past 6 months. The words hit like bullets. What? They were planning this together. Frank would eliminate David, get custody of Lucas, then transfer guardianship to Margaret in exchange for a cut of the inheritance. But Frank got greedy. He wanted it all. That's why he tried to kill Lucas instead of handing him over. Hammer's hands were shaking. Not with fear, with rage so pure it burned. She was part of this from the beginning. Looks that way. Frank was her pawn. When he failed, she moved to Plan B. Show up as the grieving aunt, claim blood rights, take custody legally. And the money, the insurance policy, the trust fund access to Lucas's assets once she's his guardian. We're talking over $2 million, more than enough to bail out her failing fund and pay off her debts. Hammer closed his eyes. Another predator, another monster in human skin, smiling and calculating while planning to destroy a child's life. But this time he had proof. Can we use this in court? That's the problem. Most of this was obtained illegally. Ghost hacking surveillance without warrants, accessing sealed records. A judge would throw it out in a heartbeat. There has to be a way. There might be. Stone paused. The emails between Margaret and Frank. If we can get Frank to testify about their arrangement, confirm the conspiracy, that's admissible. Frank's in custody. His lawyer won't let him say a word. His lawyer doesn't know about this. Frank thinks his deal with Margaret is still secret. If he knew we had evidence of their connection, if he thought she was about to throw him under the bus to save herself, he might flip on her. Exactly. Criminals like Frank only have one loyalty: self-preservation. If we can convince him that Margaret's planning to blame everything on him, he'll talk to save himself. Hammer was quiet for a moment, running scenarios through his head. Can you get me into the jail? Hammer, that's insane. You show up at the detention center, you'll be arrested before you reach the front door. Not me. He stood, decision made. Wade, get me Detective Wade. Dawn was breaking when Wade arrived at the bar. He looked exhausted, like he'd been up all night too. But when Hammer explained the situation, showed him the evidence Stone had gathered, the fatigue vanished from his eyes. Margaret Cole, Wade breathed. She was involved in David's murder. Conspiracy to commit. She planned it with Frank. They were going to split everything. And you can prove this. Not legally, not yet, but if we can get Frank to confirm it. Wade was already shaking his head. Frank's not going to talk. His lawyers have got him locked down tight. No visitors, no interviews, nothing. His lawyer doesn't know about Margaret. Frank thinks their partnership is still secret. If someone were to suggest that Margaret's planning to pin everything on him, he might panic, start talking to cut his own deal. Wade's eyes narrowed. That's borderline entrapment. Is it? Probably. Wade was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, a hard, determined smile. Good thing I'm retiring next year anyway. Let's go rattle some cages. The detention center was a gray concrete block on the edge of town. Wade walked through the front door like he owned the place. Showed his badge, signed in, requested an interview room. Nobody questioned him. Nobody thought twice about a decorated detective visiting a high-profile prisoner. Frank Mercer was brought in 20 minutes later. He looked terrible. Bruised, pale, thinner than he'd been at his arrest. Prison hadn't been kind to him, even in protective custody. Word traveled fast in places like this. Detective, Frank's voice was hoarse. My lawyer's not here. I'm not supposed to talk to anyone without my lawyer. This isn't an official interview. Wade settled into the chair across from him. I just wanted to give you some information. Professional courtesy. What kind of information? We arrested Margaret Cole this morning. Frank's face went white. Wade watched the reaction with interest. You know her, don't you? You're a co-conspirator. The woman you planned David's murder with. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. We have the emails, Frank, every single one. The plans, the financial arrangements, the contingencies. We know you two were working together from the start. Frank was silent, but his hands were trembling on the table. Here's what's interesting, Wade continued. Margaret's been very cooperative, very talkative. She's saying the whole thing was your idea, that you manipulated her, threatened her, forced her to go along. She's painting herself as a victim. That's a lie. Is it because right now it's her word against yours? And she's got better lawyers, better connections. She's already negotiating a deal, Frank. Reduced charges in exchange for full cooperation. She can't do that. We had an agreement. Agreements don't mean much when someone's facing life in prison. Wade leaned forward. She's going to let you take the fall for everything. David's murder, Lucas's abuse, the trafficking connection. All of it. By the time she's done, you'll be the mastermind behind every crime in this case, and she'll walk away with a slap on the wrist. Frank's composure shattered. No, that's not how this works. She came to me. She brought me the plan. She knew about Victor's network because she was already laundering their money. I was just supposed to be the hands. She was supposed to handle everything else. Wade sat back. Tell me more. And Frank did. For the next 90 minutes, Frank Mercer dismantled every lie Margaret Cole had ever told. He detailed their communications, their planning sessions, their arrangement to split the inheritance. He explained how Margaret had introduced him to Victor, how she'd suggested using the trafficking network as a backup option if something went wrong. He admitted to sabotaging David's brakes, admitted to planning Lucas's murder, admitted to everything because admitting was the only way to drag Margaret down with him. By the time he was done, Wade had enough to arrest Margaret Cole for conspiracy to commit murder insurance, fraud money laundering, and accessory to child trafficking. And he had it all on tape. The second day of the hearing began at 9 a.m. Margaret Cole arrived in a different outfit, this time more conservative, more sympathetic. Her lawyers flanked her like bodyguards, briefcases, bulging with motions and filings. She looked confident. That confidence lasted exactly 4 minutes. Judge Martinez called the court to order, then looked at Detective Wade, who had requested emergency time on the docket. "Detective, you said you have new evidence relevant to this custody matter." Wade stood. "Yes, Your Honor. Last night we received a full confession from Frank Mercer regarding the murder of David Cole and the planned murder of Lucas Cole. That confession implicated Margaret Cole as a co-conspirator." The courtroom erupted. Margaret's lawyers were on their feet shouting objections. Margaret herself had gone pale, her composure cracking for the first time. Judge Martinez banged her gavel. "Order, I will have order in this court." The noise subsided. "Continue, Detective." Wade approached the bench with a folder. Frank Mercer confessed that Margaret Cole approached him 6 months before David Cole's death with a plan to murder David and gain control of Lucas Cole's inheritance. She introduced him to Victor Kozlov's trafficking network as a potential buyer for the child if other options failed. She has been laundering money for that network for at least 5 years. Margaret was shaking now. "This is lies. This is fabricated. I've never met Frank Mercer in my life." "We have emails, Ms. Cole. We have phone records. We have Frank Mercer's detailed testimony given voluntarily implicating you in conspiracy to commit murder." Wade turned to face her directly. "You didn't come here for your nephew. You came here for $2 million. Just like you came to David 18 years ago for your parents' estate. Just like you've done to every vulnerable person you've ever encountered. You're not a grieving aunt. You're a predator." Margaret lunged to her feet. "This is outrageous. I'll sue you for defamation. I'll—" "Margaret Cole," Wade interrupted. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, accessory to child trafficking, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent." 2 officers moved forward. Margaret tried to run. She made it 3 steps before they caught her wrestling her arms behind her back, clicking handcuffs around her wrists. She screamed cursed, threatened lawsuits and political connections and every kind of revenge imaginable. Nobody listened. As they dragged her toward the exit, she caught sight of Lucas. The boy was standing in the front row, holding Hammer's hand, watching her with those steady blue eyes. "You," Margaret spat. "You worthless little—" "Get her out of here," Judge Martinez ordered. The doors slammed shut behind her. Silence fell over the courtroom. Judge Martinez removed her glasses, rubbing her eyes. When she looked up again, her expression was deeply troubled. "In my 22 years on this bench, I have seen many things. I have seen parents fail their children in every way imaginable. I have seen systems designed to protect become systems that destroy. But I have never, in all my years, seen a child targeted by so many predators in such a short time." She looked at Lucas. "This boy has been through more in 6 years than most people face in a lifetime. His father was murdered. His guardian tortured him. His aunt conspired to steal his inheritance and possibly sell him into trafficking. Every adult who should have protected him failed him or betrayed him." Her eyes moved to Hammer. "Except one." Hammer felt his heart stop. "Henry Morrison, I've read your file. I know your record. I know the concerns that any reasonable judge would have about placing a child in your care. But I've also seen something else in these proceedings. I've seen a man who walked into a situation he didn't ask for and did everything in his power to protect a child he'd never met. I've seen a community of people society has written off as criminals and outcasts come together to save a little boy's life." She paused. "And I've seen that little boy. I've seen how he looks at you. I've seen the trust in his eyes, trust that was destroyed by everyone else, but somehow survived when it came to you." Lucas's hand tightened on Hammer's. "This court's primary concern is the best interest of the child. And after everything I've seen and heard over the past 2 days, believe against all conventional wisdom that Lucas Cole's best interest lies with Henry Morrison." Hammer forgot how to breathe. "I am granting full legal guardianship of Lucas Cole to Henry Morrison effective immediately. This is a permanent arrangement subject to standard monitoring for the first year. Mr. Morrison, you will have all the rights and responsibilities of a legal parent. She looked at Lucas. Young man, is this what you want? Lucas nodded, then finding his voice, yes, ma'am. Do you understand what it means? It means I have a family now, a real one. Judge Martinez smiled. It was the first genuine smile she'd shown since the hearing began. Yes, it does. She banged her gavel. This court is adjourned. Hammer stood frozen. It was over. After everything, all the fear and fighting and sleepless nights, it was over. Lucas was his, legally, officially, permanently. Then Lucas was in his arms and he was crying, and it didn't matter that a courtroom full of people was watching. It didn't matter that his reputation was built on being hard and scary and unbreakable. He held that boy and he wept. Thank you, Lucas whispered into his chest. Thank you for keeping your promise. Always, son. Hammer's voice cracked. Always. Behind them, the angels rose to their feet. Stone, Razor, Mama Jean. All of them standing in solidarity, bearing witness to a miracle none of them had expected. Family isn't blood. Family is who shows up. The celebration at the bar lasted well into the night. Someone had hung a banner, "Welcome home, Lucas." Mama Jean had baked a cake chocolate with blue frosting, Lucas's favorite colors. The angels who testified, who'd stood watch, who'd fought beside Hammer every step of the way, they all came to celebrate. Lucas moved through the crowd like a different child, smiling, laughing, letting Razor teach him to play pool even though the cue was taller than he was. Letting Stone lift him onto his shoulders so he could see over everyone's heads. He looked happy, actually genuinely impossibly happy. Hammer watched from the corner, a beer in his hand that he hadn't touched. He wasn't much for parties, but he couldn't bring himself to leave. Couldn't take his eyes off the bum who was legally and permanently his son now. His son. The words still didn't feel real. Stone appeared beside him, following his gaze. Hell of a thing, Stone said. Yeah. You ready for this 18 years of homework and parent-teacher conferences and teenage rebellion? Hammer smiled. No. Good. Nobody ever is. Stone clapped him on the shoulder. David would be proud, you know. He'd be so damn proud of both of you. Hope so. I know so. That man trusted you with the most precious thing in his life, and you came through. Against every odd, every obstacle, every person who said it couldn't be done. Stone's voice softened. That's not nothing, Hammer. That's everything. Hammer was quiet for a moment. I keep thinking about what could have happened if Lucas hadn't run, if he'd been too scared or too hurt, or if Frank had caught him before he reached us. That kid would be dead right now, or worse. But he's not. He's right there learning to play pool and eating too much cake. He's alive because of you. He's alive because of his father. David's the one who gave him the drawing. David's the one who made sure he knew where to go. And you're the one who answered the door. Stone met his eyes. You could have turned him away, called the cops. Let the system handle it. Nobody would have blamed you. Instead, you stepped up. You became what that kid needed. Hammer looked at Lucas, who was now trying to convince Mama Jean to let him have a third piece of cake. I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. You chose right. Before Hammer could respond, Lucas broke away from the crowd and ran toward him. Without hesitation, the boy crashed into his legs, wrapping his arms around Hammer's waist. Mama Jean says it's getting late. She says I should go to bed. She's probably right. But I don't want to. I want to stay up. I want to remember tonight forever. Hammer crouched down, putting himself at eye level. You will remember. This is the first night of the rest of your life. But there'll be other nights too. Better nights. And you need to be rested for all the adventures we're going to have. Lucas considered this. What kind of adventures? Whatever kind you want. We've got time now. All the time in the world. The boy's face softened. I've never had time before. Uncle Frank always said I was running out of time, that I'd better behave because time was almost up. Hammer felt his jaw tighten. Even now, even in victory, Frank's poison lingered. Your uncle was wrong about a lot of things. Time isn't running out, Lucas. It's just beginning. Lucas smiled, a real smile reaching all the way to his eyes. Okay, I'll go to bed, but will you tuck me in every night for as long as you want? They walked together toward the back room, toward the space that had become Lucas's home. Behind them, the party continued laughter and music and the rumble of voices celebrating a victory none of them had expected. Hammer helped Lucas change into his pajamas, the new ones with dinosaurs on them. He pulled back the covers, waited while the boy climbed in, then sat on the edge of the bed. Hammer, yeah. What happens now with Uncle Frank and her, Margaret? The aunt who tried to steal him. They're going to prison, both of them, for a very long time. They can never hurt you again. Promise, promise. Lucas was quiet for a moment. Then what about the other kids, the ones Victor was going to take? They're safe. They're with people who love them now, just like you. Because we stopped him. Because you were brave enough to run. Because you found us. Because you told the truth even when it was scary. Lucas processed this. So something good came from something bad. Yes, something very good. The boy nodded slowly. Daddy used to say then. He said even the worst things can lead to the best things if you're brave enough to keep going. Hammer's throat tightened. Your daddy was a smart man. I know. Lucas reached out, taking Hammer's hand. He sent me to you. That was the smartest thing he ever did. For a moment, Hammer couldn't speak. Get some sleep, son. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. Why, what's tomorrow? Hammer smiled. Tomorrow, we start figuring out what normal looks like. School registration, doctor's appointments, maybe getting you some furniture that isn't bar equipment. Lucas giggled. I like the bar. I know you do, but you also need a real room, with a real bed, and maybe some toys that aren't pool balls. Can I have a dog? The question caught Hammer off guard. Mish. A dog. Daddy always said we'd get a dog someday, but then Lucas's voice trailed off. I always wanted a dog. Hammer looked at this boy, this tiny, brave, impossible boy who'd walk through fire and come out the other side, still capable of wanting simple things like bish and toys and normal life. Yeah, he said. Yeah, we can get it done. Lucas's face lit up. Really, Mom? Really, but we'll talk about it tomorrow. Sleep now. Okay. Lucas settled back into the pillows. Hammer? Yeah, I love you. The words hit like a punch to the chest. Simple words. 3 syllables. But carrying the weight of everything this child had been through, everything he'd survived, everything he'd lost. I love you, said to the stranger who'd become his father. Hammer leaned down, pressing a kiss to the boy's forehead. I love you too, Lucas. More than you'll ever know. He turned off the light, started to leave. Hammer. Lucas's voice was sleepy now. Yeah. You're going to be right outside, like always. Like always. Okay, good night. Good night, son. Hammer closed the door and stood in the hallway, hand pressed against the wood, listening to the sound of a child's breathing slowly even out into sleep. Peaceful sleep. Safe sleep. He stayed there for a long time. When he finally walked back to the bar, the party was winding down. Most of the angels had left, heading home to their own lives, their own families. Stone was helping Mama Jean clean up. Razor was asleep on a booth, snoring softly. Hammer stepped outside. The night was cool, clear. Stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on velvet. In the parking lot, the motorcycles gleamed under the streetlights, chrome and leather and power. His life, his world, and now his son. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through his contacts until he found a number he hadn't called in years. His sister. They'd been estranged since their mother died. Stupid arguments, stubborn pride, years of silence that had calcified into something that felt permanent. But maybe it wasn't. He dialed. 3 rings. 4. Hello. Her voice was thick with sleep, confused. Who is this? It's Henry. Silence. Henry Morrison, your brother. I know who you are. A pause. It's 3 a.m. I know, I'm sorry, He searched for words. I wanted to tell you something. What? I have a son now. His name is Lucas. He's 6 years old and he's brave and smart and he's been through hell, but he made it out. He made it out because someone loved him enough to point him in the right direction. And I was there to catch him. Silence on the other end. Long, heavy silence. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't want to waste any more time. Because life is short and family matters, and I've spent too many years pretending I didn't need anyone. Lucas taught me something. He taught me that asking for help isn't weakness. Running toward the people who might save you, that takes more courage than running away. He could hear her breathing, could feel the years of distance stretching between them. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he continued. I'm not asking it for anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm different now, that I've changed. And if you ever want to meet your nephew, he'd love to have more family. Another long silence. Then softly, send me a picture. Hammer smiled. Yeah, I can do that. And Henry, yeah. It's good to hear your voice, the line went dead. Hammer stood in the parking lot, phone in hand, looking up at the stars. Somewhere inside, Lucas was sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. Somewhere across town, the predators who'd hunted him were in cells facing justice. And here in the darkness, a man who'd thought himself beyond redemption had found something he never expected. A second chance, a family, a reason to believe that the world, despite all its cruelty, could still surprise you with grace. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, school registration, doctor's appointments, learning how to be a father to a child who'd never had one, not really. But tonight, Hammer stood under the stars and let himself feel something he hadn't felt in decades. Hope, pure, unguarded hope. And somewhere David Cole was watching, smiling, knowing his son was exactly where he was meant to be. 1 year later, Lucas Cole turned 7. The party was nothing like any birthday he'd ever had before. Uncle Frank had never acknowledged his birthdays, had told him celebrating was for kids who deserved it, had made sure Lucas understood that his existence was a burden, not a blessing. But this birthday was different. 53 people showed up. Angels from 3 different chapters, their families, Detective Wade, with his daughter, Dr. Chen, with a present wrapped in Spider-Man paper. Mama Jean had baked a cake so large it took 2 people to carry it. Stone had organized games. Razor had somehow acquired a bounce house, which he claimed fell off a truck, but probably didn't. And in the middle of it all, Lucas ran and laughed and played like a child who'd never known darkness. Hammer watched from his usual spot, slightly apart from the crowd, beer in hand. He still wasn't comfortable at parties. Still felt awkward when too many people wanted to talk to him. But he couldn't stop smiling. His son was happy. That was everything. Hell of a year, Stone said, appearing beside him. Hell of a year, Hammer agreed. It had been. 12 months of learning how to be a father. School meetings and homework help and bedtime stories. Doctor's appointments to track Lucas's recovery, both physical and emotional. Therapy sessions twice a week where Lucas slowly unpacked the trauma he'd carried. There had been setbacks, nightmares that came without warning. Panic attacks triggered by unexpected sounds or smells. Days when Lucas retreated into himself, when the shadows of the past seemed too heavy to escape. But there had been victories too. The first time Lucas laughed so hard he cried. The first time he called Hammer Dad without thinking about it. The first time he slept through the night without screaming. Small miracles, daily graces, the slow, patient work of healing. You look different, Stone observed. Softer. Careful. You'll ruin my reputation. What reputation? Everyone knows you're a teddy bear now, words out. Hammer Morrison, fearsome biker, brought down by a 6-year-old with dinosaur pajamas. Hammer laughed. Actually laughed. That was new too. Worth it, he said. Yeah. Stone's expression turned serious. I heard from Wade this morning. Frank's appeal was denied. He's serving the full sentence. No parole for at least 20 years. Good. Margaret's trial starts next month. Prosecution's confident. Between Frank's testimony and the evidence Ghost dug up, she's looking at life. Better. They stood in silence for a moment, watching Lucas chase Razor's kids around the bounce house. David's shield is expanding, Stone said. We got requests from 4 more chapters this week. Everyone wants to help. Turns out bikers are pretty good at protecting kids. David's shield. The program had been Hammer's idea, born in the aftermath of Lucas's rescue. A network of angels dedicated to helping abused children, providing safe houses, supporting investigations, standing guard when the system failed. They'd helped 37 children in the past year. 37 kids who might have slipped through the cracks, might have been lost to predators and neglect. 37 reasons to keep going. We need more volunteers, Hammer said. More training, more resources. I know, that's why I wanted to talk to you. Stone hesitated. The National Council wants you to speak at the annual meeting next month. Tell Lucas's story. Inspire other chapters to get involved. Hammer stiffened. I don't do speeches. I know, but this is important. What you did, what we built, it matters. People need to hear it from you. They can hear it from someone else. It's not the same. Stone met his eyes. You're the one who answered the door, Hammer. You're the one who made the choice. That means something. Before Hammer could argue further, Lucas broke away from the group and sprinted toward them. His face was flushed with excitement, cake frosting smeared on his cheek. Dad Razor says I can ride on his bike later. Can I? Please, Dad. The words still made Hammer's chest tight. Did you finish your cake? Most of it. Mama Jean gave me seconds, but I saved some for Biscuit. Biscuit, the golden retriever pup they'd adopted 6 months ago. Lucas had named him, had spent hours teaching him tricks, had bonded with the animal in a way that seemed to help heal wounds words couldn't reach. You can ride with Razor, but you wear your helmet and you hold on tight. I always hold on tight. Lucas threw his arms around Hammer's waist. This is the best birthday ever, the best day of my whole life. Hammer ruffled his hair. Better get back to your party. I think Stone's about to start the piñata. Lucas's eyes went wide. Piñata! He was gone before Hammer could respond, racing back to the crowd, shouting for his friends. Stone watched him go. That kid's something special. He is. So are you. You know what you've done this year. The father you've become. David would be amazed. Hammer was quiet for a moment. I think about him a lot, wondering if I'm doing it right, if I'm making the choices he'd want. You are, darling. Stone's voice was firm. Trust me, you are. The party continued until sunset. When the last guest finally left, when the bounce house was deflated and the presents were opened and the cake was reduced to crumbs, Lucas sat on the porch with Hammer watching the stars come out. Biscuit lay between them, head on Lucas's lap, tail wagging contentedly. Dad, yeah, I was thinking about something. What's that? Lucas was quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts. He did that now, took his time with words, thought before he spoke. Therapy had taught him that his feelings mattered, that he deserved to express them fully. A year ago, I was so scared. Every day, every minute, I thought that was just how life was. I thought being scared was normal. Hammer's jaw tightened. Even now, even after everything, the casual mention of Lucas's past suffering hit like a blow. It's not normal, he said. No child should ever feel that way. I know that now, but I didn't then. I thought everyone was scared of the people who were supposed to love them. Lucas stroked Biscuit's fur. When I ran away, I wasn't sure anyone would help me. I thought maybe everyone was like Uncle Frank. Maybe the whole world was just people pretending to be nice while they waited to hurt you. Lucas, but then I found you. Lucas looked up, his blue eyes bright in the fading light. And you weren't pretending. You were real. You're still real. Every day. Hammer felt his throat tighten. I will always be real with you, son. Always. I know. Lucas leaned against his side. That's why I'm not scared anymore. Not of anything, because I know you're here. I know you'll protect me. I know this is home. They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars multiply across the sky. Dad. Yeah. Thank you for opening the door. Hammer pulled him closer. Thank you for knocking. 3 months later, the phone call came. Hammer was in the chair in the kitchen making breakfast when his cell rang. He didn't recognize the number, but something told him to answer. Mr. Morrison, this is Janet Wells from the State Child Welfare Office. His stomach dropped. Even now, after the guardianship was finalized, after a year of inspections and reports and proof that Lucas was thriving, any call from CPS made his blood run cold. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Mr. Morrison. Actually, I'm calling about an opportunity. We have a situation that we thought David Shield might be able to help with. Hammer relaxed slightly. What kind of situation? A child, 10 years old, just removed from an abusive home. She's been through 3 foster placements in 2 months. No one can handle her. She's angry, violent, refuses to trust anyone. That sounds like trauma, not a behavior problem. We agree, but the system isn't equipped to help her. She needs something different. Someone who understands what she's been through. Someone who won't give up on her. Hammer was quiet for a moment. Why are you calling me specifically? Because she asked for you. She saw a news story about Lucas, about how you saved him. She told her caseworker that she wanted to go to the biker man, the one who doesn't give up. The words hit hard. Another child, another broken kid looking for someone to believe in. What's her name? Emma. Emma Richardson. She's been through things I can't even describe, Mr. Morrison. Things that would break most adults. But when she saw your picture, she said, Janet paused. She said you look like someone who fights for people. She asked if you would fight for her. Hammer closed his eyes. He thought about Lucas, safe now, happy now. He thought about David's shield, about the 37 children they'd helped. He thought about the door that had opened one night, changing everything. Where is she? County Children's Home. But Mr. Morrison, I should warn you, this won't be easy. Emma is difficult. She pushes people away. She's been hurt so many times that she doesn't believe anyone can be trusted. I was difficult once too. Someone took a chance on me anyway. Janet was quiet for a moment. When can you come? Give me an hour. He hung up and turned to find Lucas standing in the doorway. Who was that? Hammer considered how much to tell him. Lucas was 7 now, mature beyond his years, but still a child. Still healing. Remember David's shield? How we help kids who need it. Lucas nodded. There's a girl. Her name is Emma. She's 10, and she's been through some really hard stuff. She asked for our help. Is she scared like I was? I think so, maybe even more scared. Lucas thought about this. Are we going to help her? That's what I wanted to talk to you about. If we help Emma, really help her, it might mean she comes to stay with us for a while. Maybe a long while. It would change things. Change things, how? I'd have to split my attention. You wouldn't be the only kid I'm taking care of. It might be hard sometimes. Lucas's expression was serious, thoughtful. When I was with Uncle Frank, I used to pray that someone would come. Someone who would see me. Someone who would care. But no one came, not for a long time. I know, a son. Emma's waiting right now, praying like I did, hoping someone will come. Hammer crouched down. What do you think we should do? Lucas didn't hesitate. We should go get her. No one should have to wait as long as I did. Pride swelled in Hammer's chest. This boy, this incredible, compassionate, brave boy. You're sure, I'm sure, she needs us, Dad. And we have room in our house, in our family. Hammer pulled him into a hug. When did you get so wise? I learned from you. They drove to the children's home together. Emma Richardson was exactly what Janet Wells had described. Small for her age, thin, with short, dark hair that looked like it had been cut with scissors by someone who didn't care. Her eyes were hard, suspicious, scanning Hammer and Lucas like they were threats to be evaluated. She stood against the wall, arms crossed, chin lifted in defiance. You're the biker, she said, not a question. I'm Hammer. This is my son, Lucas. He was on the news, the kid who ran away from his uncle. Lucas stepped forward. Yeah, that was me. Emma's hard expression flickered. Just for a second. Was it true what they said he did to you? It was true. And you're okay now, living with him. She jerked her chin toward Hammer. I'm better than okay. I'm happy. Emma studied him for a long moment, searching for the lie, looking for the catch. Just like Lucas had done, standing in the doorway of a biker bar, hoping against hope that someone would help. They say you fight for kids, she finally said to Hammer, that you don't give up. I don't. Everyone gives up. Everyone says they'll help and then they leave. Foster parents, teachers, counselors, they all leave. I'm not them. That's what they said too. Hammer crouched down, putting himself at her eye level. Emma, I'm not going to make promises I can't keep. I don't know you. You don't know me. But I know what it's like to be scared and alone and waiting for someone to give a damn. And I know what it looks like when someone's been hurt by the people who were supposed to protect them. He let that settle. I can't promise that everything will be perfect. I can't promise I won't make mistakes. But I can promise that I will never ever give up on you. No matter what you do, no matter how hard you push, I will still be here. Emma's hard expression cracked, just slightly, a tremor in the armor she'd built. Why, you don't even know me. Because someone gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve it. Someone saw past my walls and my anger and my fear, and they believed in me anyway. That changed everything. Maybe I can do the same for you. Emma looked at Lucas. Is he for real? Lucas nodded. He's the realest person I've ever met. Something shifted in Emma's eyes. Not trust, not yet, but something else, the faintest glimmer of hope in a child who'd given up on hoping. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, I'll trade, but when you give up, when you decide I'm too much trouble, don't act surprised. I warned you. Hammer stood. Deal, but I should warn you too. About what? I'm stubborn as hell. Just ask anyone who knows me. For the first time, Emma almost smiled. Almost. The first weeks with Emma were brutal. She tested every boundary, screamed, threw things, refused to eat, refused to sleep, refused to believe that this wasn't temporary, that she wasn't about to be abandoned again. Lucas watched it all with patient understanding. She's scared, he told Hammer one night after Emma had locked herself in her room and wouldn't come out. She's doing what I wanted to do, pushing to see if you'll push back. What made you stop when you first got here? Lucas thought about it. I didn't stop right away. I just got tired, and every time I pushed, you were still there. Eventually, I started believing you'd keep being there. You think she'll believe too? Maybe, if we don't give up. So they didn't give up. Hammer sat outside Emma's door for 3 hours that night, just like he'd sat outside Lucas's room. He didn't demand she come out, didn't threaten, just talked. Told her about his life, about the angels, about David and Lucas, and the night everything changed. Eventually the door opened. Emma stood there, eyes red, arms wrapped around herself. You're still here, she said, accusation and wonder mixed together. I told you I don't give up. Why not? Because you matter, because someone should have fought for you a long time ago, because I refuse to be another person who walks away. Emma stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she sat down next to him. They stayed there until dawn. 6 months later, Hammer officially adopted Emma Richardson. The ceremony was smaller than Lucas's guardianship hearing, but no less meaningful. The same courtroom, the same judge. But this time there were no predators to expose, no conspiracies to unravel. Just a man, 2 children, and a family that had chosen each other. This court recognizes the petition for adoption, Judge Martinez said. Emma Richardson will henceforth be known as Emma Morrison. Mr. Morrison, you now have the full rights and responsibilities of her legal parent. Emma stood frozen like she couldn't believe it was real. Lucas grabbed her hand. You're my sister now, he whispered. Emma looked at him, at Hammer, at the crowd of angels who'd shown up to support them, and she cried. Not sad tears, not angry tears, the tears of a child who had finally found a place to belong. Hammer gathered both kids into his arms. Welcome home, Emma, he said. Welcome home. The years that followed were marked by ordinary miracles. Lucas started the 3rd grade, then 4th, then 5th. He made friends, joined the soccer team, discovered a love for reading that surprised everyone, including himself. The nightmares faded. The flinching stopped. He grew taller, stronger, more confident every day. Emma's journey was harder, slower. The damage went deeper. But she fought for herself with the same ferocity she'd once used to push people away. Therapy helped. Time helped. Lucas helped, but most of all, patient and understanding in ways no adult could have been. By the time she turned 14, Emma was unrecognizable from the angry child who'd stood against a wall and dared anyone to care about her. She volunteered with David's Shield, spoke at schools about abuse awareness, became an advocate for kids who were still waiting for someone to open the door. Biscuit got old and slow, spending most of his days on the porch. They adopted another dog, then a cat, then somehow a rabbit that Lucas insisted had followed him home. The bar transformed from a clubhouse to a family home, though. Angels still gathered there, still considered it sacred ground. Hammer never did give that speech at the national meeting, but the story spread anyway, about a biker who answered a knock at midnight, about a 6-year-old who walked 7 miles to find safety, about a family built not from blood but from choice, from courage, from the stubborn refusal to abandon each other. David's Shield grew into something larger than Hammer had ever imagined. 100 chapters, 1,000 volunteers, 10,000 children helped over the next decade, each one a life saved, each one a reminder that small acts of courage could change the world. On Lucas's 18th birthday, they drove to David Cole's grave. It was a simple headstone in a quiet cemetery shaded by oak trees that David had probably never seen. The inscription was simple: "Beloved Father, forever remembered." Lucas knelt beside it, placing a handful of wildflowers against the stone. "Hey, Dad," he said quietly. "It's me." Hammer stood back, giving him space. "I'm 18 now, graduating next month. Got accepted to college. Can you believe it? Me college." Lucas laughed softly. "I know you'd be proud. You were always proud of me, even when I didn't understand why." He was quiet for a moment. "I think about that night a lot. The night you gave me the drawing. You knew, didn't you? You knew something bad was coming. You made sure I had a way out, even if you couldn't be there to help me take it." His voice cracked. "I used to be angry about that. Angry that you left. Angry that you couldn't stop Uncle Frank from doing what he did. But I understand now. You couldn't control what happened to you. You could only control what you gave me. And what you gave me saved my life." He touched the headstone gently. "I have a family now, Dad. A real one. He's the best man I've ever known. Besides you, Emma's my sister. She's annoying sometimes, but I love her. We have Dawson, a cat, and a rabbit that I'm pretty sure is plotting something, and a whole club full of people who would do anything for us." Lucas stood, wiping his eyes. "I'm happy, Dad. Actually, genuinely happy. Not because bad things stopped happening, but because I found people who help me through them. People who don't give up. People who show up." He looked at Hammer, still standing at a respectful distance. "You sent me to the right place. You sent me to the right person. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that trust." He stepped back, rejoining Brandmer. They stood together in silence. "You okay?" Hammer asked. "Yeah," Lucas smiled. "Yeah, I'm okay. Better than okay." "Ready to go home?" "Not yet." Lucas turned to face him. "I wanted to say something first. Something I should have said a long time ago." "What's that?" "Thank you." Lucas's eyes were bright with tears, but his voice was steady. "Thank you for opening the door. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for fighting for me when no one else would. Thank you for being my dad." Hammer felt his throat close up. "You don't have to thank me, son." "Yes, I do, because it wasn't nothing. It was everything. You were a stranger. You had no obligation. You could have called the cops and walked away, and no one would have blamed you. But you didn't. You stayed. You fought. You became my family." Lucas reached out and took his hand. "I'm going to spend my life doing what you did, helping kids who need it, opening doors, being there when it matters. David's shield is just the beginning. I want to do more, change more, save more." "That sounds like a good life." "It will be, because I learned from the best." Lucas squeezed his hand. "You taught me that family isn't blood. It's choice, it's showing up. It's fighting for each other even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Hammer couldn't speak. Lucas pulled him into a hug. Not the desperate clinging of a frightened child, but the strong embrace of a young man who knew exactly who he was and where he belonged. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, son." More than words can say. They held each other for a long moment. Then they walked back to the car together, leaving the past behind, carrying the lessons forward. Behind them, David Cole's headstone gleamed in the afternoon sun. And somewhere, somehow, a father smiled. His boy was going to be just fine. 10 years later, Lucas Cole Morrison stood in front of a crowd of 500 people. He was 28 now, tall and confident, with his father's blue eyes and his mentor's unshakable presence. Behind him, a banner read, "David's Shield National Conference." Emma sat in the front row now, a social worker specializing in child advocacy. Hammer sat beside her, gray-haired but still imposing, still wearing his leather vest, still refusing to apologize for who he was. 22 years ago, Lucas began. "I walked into a biker bar." The crowd laughed softly. "I was 6 years old, barefoot, terrified, covered in bruises. I'd walk 7 miles in the middle of the night to find a man I'd never met because my father trusted him. Because my father knew that sometimes the people who look scariest are the ones with the biggest hearts." He paused, letting the words settle. "That man became my father. That biker bar became my home. Those scary people became my family. And in the 22 years since we've helped over 20,000 children find safety, find hope, find the same second chance I got. He looked at Hammer. My dad taught me something important. He taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about choice. It's about showing up. It's about opening the door when someone knocks at midnight, even when you don't know who's on the other side. He stepped out from behind the podium. Every child deserves someone who will open the door. Every child deserves someone who will fight for them. Every child deserves to hear the words I heard that night, standing scared and alone, begging for help. His voice dropped to almost a whisper, but the microphone carried it to every corner of the room. You're safe now. You're one of us, and I will never let anyone hurt you again. He looked out at the crowd at 500 people who had dedicated their lives to protecting children. That's what we do. That's who we are. That's the promise we make every single day to every single child who needs us. He stood tall. I'm Lucas Morrison. I was the first, but I won't be the last. Not as long as there are doors to open. Not as long as there are children waiting in the dark. Not as long as there are people willing to fight for them. He raised his fist. We are David's shield, and we don't give up. The crowd rose to their feet. The applause was thunderous, and in the front row, Hammer Morrison watched his son with tears streaming down his face. 22 years ago, he'd opened a door. He'd never imagined it would lead to this. That night, they gathered at the bar, the same bar where Lucas had first appeared. The same walls, the same floor, though the furniture had changed and the decorations had multiplied. Family photos everywhere now. Lucas at various ages, Emma's graduation, grandchildren because Stone and Razor both had kids who had kids, and the family kept growing. Hammer sat in his usual spot, beer in hand, watching his people celebrate. Lucas found him there, sliding into the seat across the table. Hell of a speech, Hammer said. Learn how to from watching you. Actions, not words. That was mostly words. Words backed by 22 years of action. Lucas smiled. You know, when I was writing it, I kept thinking about that night, about how close I came to not making it, if I'd been slower, if I'd given up, if you hadn't opened the door. But you didn't give up, and I did open it. Yeah. Lucas was quiet for a moment. I've never asked you this, but I've always wondered, what would you have done if I hadn't come, if you'd never found out about me? Hammer considered the question. I don't know. Probably kept doing what I was doing, running the club, getting older, missing something without knowing what it was. Do you think you'd have been happy? I think I'd have been fine. Content, but not happy. There's a difference, Hammer met his eye. You taught me that. You and Emma, you taught me what I was missing. Family, purpose, a reason to be better than I was. Hammer took a long drink. You saved me too, you know. That night, when you knocked on the door, you saved me just as much as I saved you. Lucas's throat tightened. We saved each other. Yeah, Hammer smiled. We did. They sat together in comfortable silence, father and son bound not by blood, but by something stronger. Outside, motorcycles rumbled. Inside, family gathered. And somewhere in the hearts of 20,000 children who'd been given second chances, David's shield lived on. Because family isn't blood, family is choice. Family is who shows up when you're scared and alone, when you've lost everything, when you've given up hope. Family is the door that opens in the darkness. And once you find it, once you walk through it, once you are welcomed into arms that won't let go, you're never alone again. Not ever. Lucas Cole Morrison learned that at 6 years old, standing barefoot in a parking lot clutching a crumpled drawing. He spent the rest of his life making sure other children learned it too. Because some lessons are too important to keep to yourself. Some doors are too precious not to open. And some families are too powerful not to share. This is what love looks like. This is what protection means. This is what happens when someone chooses to care. And it starts with 3 simple words that change everything. Please, don't send me back. The answer that night was the answer that mattered. You're home now, son. You're finally home.